Hi, guys.
Hello.
Oh, God. Welcome back.
Welcome to the welcome to the shit show.
There it is. Sorry. A little eepy.
It's okay. I forgive you.
Welcome to the final
Oh my God.
episode of the series. I am so tired.
I am too. Also, do we want to just go ahead and talk about what's going on just in case this episode sounds like actual ass?
Yeah, I mean, we can, but we can also, we're trying out a new setup.
As we have done like 4 times at this point.
We're still in the growing pains, and I imagine we're going to be in the growing pains for a good while when it comes to this podcast. So,
We just got an audio setup to where we are actually facing each other and recording in the same room now, which is very convenient. But also, that means that we are having to deal with the thing that no one ever talks about in podcasting, which is that we have 2 separate microphones that are both recording in the same room. And even though we're facing different directions and the microphone is facing different directions, we have a little bit of bleed over. And
which drives me crazy.
unfortunately, that means that we are going to have to hopefully not have any issues with syncing and echoes. But if you hear echoes, it's because we recorded the episode and we don't have the ability to have time to re-record it. But you guys are also going to unfortunately be hearing a lot more of my vocal tics, which I apologize in advance for being disabled if that's just a fucking issue for you. But I do have Tourette's. It is something that we're both very used to. So you're just going to hear a lot more of my little grumbly sounds in the background, maybe, of the audio. And if that's a problem for you, I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, to be fair, I feel like we've done a pretty good job of cutting those out anyway.
Yeah, but some people are still going to be like, you make your throat noises. Yeah, I medically have to. So
Medically, I can't stop it.
if you want to pay medically to find a cure for Tourette's, which doesn't need a cure, except for people who have really extreme cases of it, then be my fucking guest if that's what you want to do. But I'm very content being a person with Tourette's. There's no fun word for a person with Tourette's.
Tourette'sian.
Terrestrian?
Yeah, like
an earth person? Terrestrian?
no, that's just earthen. Like a Martian, but like with Tourette's.
Interterrestrial. Instead of extraterrestrial?
Interterrestrial.
Interterrestrial.
Okay.
Yeah, that works. I'll take that.
So until these growing pains are over, they're not going to be over for like several years, I fear.
It's never-ending growth and development and learning when doing a podcast, but thank you for bearing with us while we sort all of this out. We're only on episode 12 right now, I think.
we're. Let me make sure.
I'm checking.
No, let me check. I want to check.
I'm checking anyway.
I'm gonna check.
This is episode 12.
Oh Lord, we're already at episode 12.
Yeah, so I mean, we've been doing this for only 12 episodes. It's very early for us, and I think we're doing good. So we're trying.
We're doing our best.
We are doing our best. Anyway, how are you, Psychos?
I am extremely tired. I am been doing
so much. You've been doing so much.
I've been doing research for for next week's case, because unfortunately this this series has eaten up so much of my time. I just didn't have time to get into literally anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So usually now would be the best time to have a backlog of cases. I do not. I know what cases I want to do. I just don't have the research done for them. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I had to take a break, I think, last time from researching to be able to research the thing that I'm doing now. And I currently have my notes for, I think, next episode almost completely done. And I'm so excited to be talking about something other than the Romanovs. I love the Romanovs very much. I love most of the Romanovs very much. But
I love that. Well,
yeah, I am very excited to not be doing this. So there's that.
yeah, I'm so ready for this thing to be over with. Like, Granted, this series itself has been, I feel like it's been some of our best work so far. Like, it really shows just.
Yeah, I think that I feel kind of mixed about it. There's definitely we talked about this in the car when we were getting dinner earlier, but I feel like I somehow talked about a lot and then also not a lot of information, especially because I was going over each of the sisters so much that I feel like I just kind of like kept saying the same shit in different ways, and I'm still probably going to do it, but it mostly was just trying to connect back to like, oh, remember when this happened, this is the same time that this happened. But I feel like it's very eye-opening into how much you can research something and still stumble upon new information.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very weird. I don't know if you experience that a lot with your case, because I know you had so little information to go off of, but I definitely had instances where I was like, oh, I like even today, I've been researching this for how long now, and
God,
I'm
months.
still discovering new information every single day that I'm like holy crap, you know?
Yeah, it's a lot. I haven't quite gotten to that point yet of like finding different things like
Mhm.
that I didn't know before just because I've been working with like this one source. However, I have learned enough to point out inconsistencies between like online articles. And I'm like, that's not right. That's not right. Wait a minute. What the fuck is happening? And I found out way too late in the game that there was a docu series about this cult
Oh,
that
we haven't
just
even watched it yet
no,
too.
it came out last year. It came out in 2023. And I had no idea because it wasn't highly publicized. It didn't come up whenever I started doing my initial research on this case. So I just thought it didn't exist. So I was like, it's fine, it's whatever. I'll figure something out. And then it pops up and I'm like, are you kidding me? But of course, Sarah is the main witness for it, like main person telling her story, I guess,
Mm.
and I don't trust her. I really don't because you'll as we go through the ending of today's case, you'll see why I don't trust her. She is very two-faced. She wants it all and wants to have it all, but the two personas that she tries to put up cannot exist.
Yeah. It just Mick be like that.
You don't think it make be like that, but
But
it
it
make
Mick
do.
do.
There's just a lot. I maybe um sometime in the future I'll watch this thing and then we might have like like if we have like a day where we just don't feel like putting out like a full episode or
Mhm.
where we need like a little break, I can give like an here are my thoughts on this docu series.
Yeah.
Like something like that.
I think it'd be fun.
Next episode's gonna be a lot of fun for you guys. I have been working all day on those.
I so now that we so a little bit of context, a little bit of a
Don't give anything away.
window into our life. Chill the fuck out. A little of a window into our life. So I have had the functioning desk for the last like couple years.
Hmm.
And so we started this podcast back in October, and up until then I was the only one with the desk. So um we celebrated a bunch of stuff going on this month, and it's also just been a really hard month, and so we decided to kind of treat ourselves to a little bit of a splurge investment. So we both finally got new desks that we can use, and now Psychos actually has a desk. We have the exact same desk, which is
I
awesome.
have a workspace
Yeah,
now. I'm about
Psychos
to be unstoppable.
Psychos didn't have a workspace before, so we have finally got that set up, and now that we are literally like what, like 4 feet, 3 feet away from each other.
I
Um
can reach out, and if you reach out, we can touch
Boop.
each other.
Hmm.
Ouch.
Ouch.
I hate us.
That was awesome. But
E.T. Phone
phone
home.
home. But so now we get more chaos because we're right in front of each other, but also I was sitting over here finishing my notes for this story, and Psychos is over there researching their next episode story, and I just kept jumping into like random bits of the stuff that they were watching and just saying some absolute banger one-liners that Psychos has currently written down. which I think are really hilarious. Do you want to use my quotes as the teasers for next episode?
No, because I think your quotes could spoil things.
Ah, dang.
But I will share your quotes at the end of the case.
I'm still laughing at one of those.
I know you are, and you can't say anything about it because it gives so much away.
I
And if
know.
people hear it,
They're gonna know
they're
immediately.
gonna know
Some
immediately.
one person out there is gonna go, wait a minute.
Exactly. And I'm like, no, I can't have that.
Yeah.
Shut that shit down.
The unfortunate situation that we have also found ourselves in though is that we both we both have a lot of books, and we don't have a lot of wall space for shelves. So we currently have like some bookcases, but we are currently out of space on our bookshelves and out of wall space for bookshelves. And we keep getting books for research. So I currently have 5 books that I have read for this story. So I have the Romanovs, I have by Robert Macy, I have the Romanov sisters by Helen Rappaport. I have the Romanovs, just the Romanovs, by Simon Sebag. The Diary of Olga, just on print, and The Last Tsar by Edward Redvinsky.
That's a name.
5 fucking books, and I'm currently using them to hold up the microphone because we don't have mic stands for our desks yet.
Yeah.
And I have more books on the sidelines right here. I've got 4 books for my next 3 stories that I'm going to start researching, and we are out of shelf space, so we have to get more bookcases. Just bookcases just for our freaking research at this point. Honestly, I think I might just get rid of those bookshelves and just buy us massive Billy bookshelves at this point
I
because
mean, yeah.
their adjustable shelves are what we need right now.
I mean, to be fair,
That and all of our gay fan fiction that we own.
it's not gay fan fiction. It's all canon.
It's gay fiction.
It's gay. It's gay fiction.
It's
yeah.
gay, yeah.
Well, there's also the fact that our living space is very small at the moment.
Yeah.
But hopefully
In the future we can expand and just move into like a library, and then we'll just have like a bed.
yeah, that's it. That's all I want. I
yeah.
don't care if like we don't have that space, like the actual living space. I just want to live in a library.
We have too many books, which is never a problem that I thought I'd have, but I have it now.
I don't think we have too many books. I just don't think we have enough
room.
space.
Mm-hmm.
That's the issue.
Shall we?
Is that all for housekeeping?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Oh, after this, I don't know if we mentioned it last episode. After this, we are no longer going to be doing long form episodes at the same time. So if we have long stories that take up multiple parts, we're going to trade off. So just so there's some variety for you guys, because this has been very fun but very exhausting, and I'm sure it's exhausting for anyone who doesn't want to listen to the Romanovs or the Narcosatanicos. This is like not the month for you, I guess. So next time that Psychos has a big story, we're going to trade off. So they're just going to tell me how many episodes that they're going to be taking up, and then I'm just going to fill in with shorter episodes in the meantime. But I'm back to mythology and culture kind of next episode.
I'm gonna try to predict how many episodes something might be beforehand. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes it's gonna be wrong. For instance, this. I didn't expect it to be this long.
I thought I was going to do this in 3 parts.
We were going to try to do this in 3 parts.
Yeah, we specifically went down to once a week because of this series, because there's so much that we were like, there's no way that we're going to get this down in 3 episodes, or these 3 episodes are going to be 10 hours long.
Yeah,
and they already kind of were.
God, don't even get me started on the double upload from last week. Well, wait, no, it was not last week, it was the week before. Okay, so what do you remember from last episode?
The invisible car shield.
I'm glad that that's the legacy that has left you.
I'm gonna be so honest, going back and listening to all of the different episodes to try and, because once we upload the episodes, I go back and listen to all of them just to make sure that it was edited properly. even though
It's like
I
you don't trust me
no,
or
I have anxiety.
something. Yeah, that's fair.
So I can't freaking remember what was last episode or not. I remember the cousin, but I think that was the episode before that. I don't remember anything. I'm gonna be so honest with you.
Okay.
Oh wait, no. Yeah, the white kid, he goes missing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they get all the bodies and they're like waiting for his body or whatever. And then there was an issue where like the bodies were in one place, but the something happened in another place. And so like the difference like was like US and Mexico were going back and forth. I'm like, this is yours, this is yours, this is yours, this is yours. I remember that. If you ask me anything else, I have no idea.
Okay.
I'm
So no,
sorry.
that's okay. That's okay. That's why I have this segment anyway. It's to
Yeah.
like we're both refresh you because you're doing so much already, and it's also to refresh like the
Yeah.
listeners because
Yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
like a lot has
Where we
happened.
picked up, yeah.
So last episode we talked about how Mark Kilroy was kidnapped and subsequently killed. We talked about the other victims during this time period, and then we also talked about Little Seraphine's invisible joyride, which was not ideal, but you know. And
Me
then
too, honestly.
and then we talked about oh goodness. We talked about the like kind of spiraling from that, like how it wasn't actually the missing persons case
Mm-hmm.
that brought everything to light. It was rather this like attempted drug bust,
Yeah.
which will piss this. It's piss. It's.
You got this.
I'm getting angry already. It
Mm-hmm.
still pisses me off because that shit still happened. It's still going on. And then we talked about how they went on the run. When we last talked about the group as a whole, 4 of them have been arrested.
Yes.
A few of them went on the run all split up,
Uh-huh.
and then 4 of them went on the run together.
Me.
Now, we've talked about the 4 in prison. The couple that went on the run we did briefly talk about because again, no, I don't know where they are. Nobody knows where they are. And then we're currently focusing on Adolfo, Martin, Omar. Oh, I lied. It's like 5. It's 5. I lied. It's Adolfo and 4 followers. That's why my brain was confused.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's Adolfo, Martin, Omar, El Dubi, and Sarah.
El doobie
El
doo.
Doobie Doo. El Doobie Doo is gonna be in some shit this episode.
Oh my god, we
Woo!
were talking about that, what, like yesterday, 2 days ago?
Mhm.
You mentioned El Doobie. We were in a parking lot. I remember that.
Yeah.
God damn it, El Doobie.
So how? What else do I want to mention? But oh yeah, oh goodness, we have lights on our desk and they just got turned red, and now I'm scared.
We're in the danger zone.
Oh goodness. Okay.
Our desks are controlled with the same style of remote. So if we hit the remote, it changes it. So whenever Psychos is mad at me, they change the lights to red.
And I didn't change it to red this time. They changed it to red.
I'm not mad. I'm changing it to the God, what's that show where when it's like the final round, the like lights, there's like a da da da, and like the like lights all go red and they like come together and like point down in one center's part of the stage.
I know what you're talking about.
I
I
don't know what show it
can't place it.
is.
Oh, is it Deal or No Deal?
Oh, it might
I
be.
think it's Deal or
This
No
is
Deal.
Deal or No Deal.
Oh god. This isn't the type of deal you want to be making, okay, babe?
No deal?
No deal.
Cool. Got
Cool,
it.
cool, cool,
Okay.
cool.
We're good now. We'll do that's
Oh,
aggressive.
that's really aggressive.
Back to white.
Okay.
Pat
So
yourself back to white.
so last we saw of the cult that is still free, the one that Adolfo was traveling with, they are currently in like some out of campground, all like camping out like in the cabins on the run.
Like Pigeon Forge cabins or like in a tent kind of cabin?
I mean, they're not in a tent, but they're not as nice as Pigeon Forge. Like it's like literally some rinky-dink campground on the edge of town. It's
It
like
should be Pigeon Forge.
they can't afford Pigeon Forge right now. That's too high profile for them.
That's a them problem.
Anyway, so they got these with the help of Carla, one of the like who formerly known as Maria.
Never trust bitches named Carla.
She changed her name to Carla, remember?
What was the name of the lady who killed Selena?
Oh, gosh. Why don't I remember?
Yolanda.
Yolanda? Never trust a bitch named Yolanda.
Never trust a bitch named Yolanda.
Anyway, so they're hiding out at this rinky-dink campground brought there by Carla.
Mm-hmm.
And they had taken Carla's doctor's car.
Okay. How did they get the doctor's car?
Because when I talked about it last week, the doctor had shown up because Sarah was not handling anything well.
Me.
So they needed to bring the doctor in to help. And then Adolfo had this crazy idea of like the doctor getting them into contact with one of her plastic surgeon buddies. So that way
Okay.
they could change, whoever this was could change their appearances and they could essentially restart. But they had to ditch the car that they were currently driving because it was Martine's sister's car, Teresa's car.
Gasp.
So they had to swap cars and they got this car from the doctor. So they currently have that car and they're currently hiding out.
Gotcha.
Again, because so much happens all at the same time, I'm going to be breaking it up kind of the same way I did it last time. So while those four were hiding out at the campground, the Mexican side of the investigation, which had taken over since the American side of the investigation had like completely crumbled by this point in time.
Tie yourself.
That the Mexican investigation was actually facing like almost the same fate, kind of.
Really?
Yeah, they were so much infighting. So the first side in this kind of weird battle for dominance was the Federal Judicial Police and the Attorney General's office. Basically the federales.
Okay, cool.
They were looking to prosecute the cult for all of the crimes of Matamoros and any past crimes, essentially. Okay, so the other side of this is the Judicial Police and the prosecutors of Mexico City. These were the locals, essentially, of Mexico City, because, you know, Adolfo and his cult had a little bit of crime in Mexico City, you know. Just a little bit, okay.
I am. I don't know how to explain this.
I look up from my notes to see Mythos holding a giant stick of selenite.
It's like a foot ish long, like longer. It was under my desk, and now I need that space, and so now I'm like trying to move it, but I don't know where to move it to. So I just have it. Put it
And
right
like I look up and they're just staring at me holding it, and I'm like, cool, I'm about to get
This is a
straight
threat.
murdered. So they were looking, so the like local police and prosecutors were looking for the cult to question them about the Calzada family murders and the murders of a La Claudia. You remember her, right?
La Claudia.
Yeah, she was the one who would bring home random men and fuck them on the stairs of the apartment.
Oh my god, yes!
Without even like
Oh god, a queen. That was the ex, right?
That was
the roommate.
That was the roommate who
Gotcha.
used to be an ex.
Oh, to be La Claudia's ex.
La Claudia's ex was who brought Adolfo.
Oh, to be with La Claudia.
She abused dogs.
Never mind.
Yeah. That was the inciting incident.
I like some but not all energies from this lady.
Yeah, that's fair. She was a fun drag queen. We love her. Rest in peace.
R.I.P.P.
While the two were clearly working for the same goal, they didn't get along at all. Because the year before, the local police attempted to storm the federal headquarters, trying to free two of their officers after they had been arrested.
Tag yourself.
So they didn't get along, and each of them were pointing the finger at the other as being corrupt. It's like, no, you're corrupt. No, you're corrupt. Reality, both are corrupt. The call is coming from inside the house at both parties. So on April 14th, this came to a head when the Mexico City investigators asked the federales for information so they can compare the murders that happened in Mexico City to the ones that happened in Matamoros. Because they were like, there could be a connection here. Some of this shit sounds familiar. Let's check it out. However, the federales refused this information, like refused to give it to them, and then turned around and asked for information from the locals.
And wait. So they refused the information from the government or from the other police force, but then turned around and was like, hey, locals, can you tell us? Like, they didn't trust with the information they were being given or something?
No, they didn't. The locals requested information. Federales said no. But then the Federales turned around and asked the locals for information.
Oh, okay. Cut that part out where I said something dumb. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my goddamn life.
I'm not going to cut it because I did kind of phrase that kind of weird. That explanation could help.
Okay, cool. Then don't cut it. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. My God. So basically, like, we're not going to tell you anything, but tell us what you know. It's like, no, there's a transaction here now.
Exactly. And
You've implemented yourself in a transaction.
This is what Attorney General Ponce, I believe his name was. This is what he said. Now, this dude was trained in America. He spoke perfect English. I think he was actually trained by like the FBI, I think. So dude knows his shit. But
being trained by the FBI means nothing to me right now.
Oh, that's fair. But anyway,
me and the FBI, we have beef right now.
Mood. So
they don't know it yet. Maybe they do now.
For legal reasons, that's a joke.
For legal reasons, this is all a joke. My whole life's a joke.
But he's working with the locals. And he says, quote, "You want us to help you, but you give us nothing. Go to hell. We'll see who gets Constanzo first." End quote.
Drama.
So no, they're literally fighting against each other.
Good though.
And you would think that with these two forces essentially competing to see who would catch Adolfo first, it would drive everyone to do the work and get it done, right?
Nope.
Well, by the 14th, the Federales in Mexico City were floundering, and there were rumors that Adolfo and his cult had fled the city. However, Comandante Benitez would alert the Federales in Mexico City that Elio had once again cracked and had discussed a number of properties that had belonged to Adolfo.
Oh, shit.
So, by the time they had arrived, Adolfo had already fled.
Mm-hmm.
And they got in, and it was pretty spotless because Adolfo's like that clean freak of a person.
Like, leave no trace kind of a thing.
Yeah, but by the end of these searches, it was just a mess, a hot mess.
Mm-hmm.
Within the homes, they located the remains of the altars that once stood in each home, but the Mexico City Nganga was missing.
The, like, main one?
Not the one in Matamoros, but one of the ones in Mexico City, because each of these homes had, like, their own personal Nganga.
Yeah.
So one of the homes was missing one.
Okay, cool. I mean, not cool, but information received.
And it's highly suspected that either Adolfo had taken it or one of the cult members, Malio, had taken that whenever he fled.
Gasp.
Because remember what happened with Malio? He was literally stopped by American police and questioned on the street, and he was like, "I'm just a kid going to school." And they let him go, and they never saw him again.
Honestly, though, that's not the worst idea to get out of it.
It's like, I'm just a college student. I don't know what you're...
Literally, this is not my job. And then just, like, fled. And I don't like it, but I respect that hustle.
Yeah. So, however, they also located hardcore gay porn and the Cult Family album. So...
Together?
Yeah. No, because here's the thing. In the photo album, there
Mhm.
was a bunch of like pictures of like the cult all together. There's a lot of pictures of Adolfo's partners in drag. It was some of them were sexually trapped.
Fucking weird this is.
Yeah.
Gets every time you open your mouth, it gets worse.
Which is why this is the last episode. Are you so happy with it?
I'm so happy. I just remember this ends in a shootout. I literally just remember that.
So the cult, like the investigators took this to further demonize the cult, and they capitalized so much on the Satanism like name, and then on the fact that a good bit of the cult were actually LGBTQ plus. Like a good majority of the cult was that. Like it wasn't.
Oh God! So I can imagine that did wonders for the gay community,
especially in 1989 when everybody's fucking...
Oh my God! Isn't that like right in the midst of the AIDS epidemic?
Yeah, and that becomes heavily prevalent later. It's rough. It's really rough. And on top of that going on, you have like a secondary satanic panic happening because of the Mark Kilroy going missing, and because he's from Texas, and everybody in Texas is terrified of anything that's not fucking
it's
Christianity.
Texas,
yeah, it's insane.
God, that's terrible.
Yeah, it's awful. I'm so tired. But more importantly, the most important thing they found at the residence were two of Adolfo's old journals. These journals were marked with Adolfo's firma, which is his symbol, the one that he got carved in his back by his old padrino.
Yeah.
And Comandante would later realize that these symbols actually matched those that were carved into the backs of some of his followers.
Oh no! I mean, yay, like, that they caught him, but, like, oh, no, that's a shit show of a situation right there.
Yeah, but that kind of proves, like, a lot of people's points that, like, Adolfo wasn't practicing and teaching them Palomayombe for traditional reasons. Usually, whenever you learn Palomayombe and you get your firma, it
Mhm.
is a firma that is specifically meant for you and you alone. Marking other people with your firma is essentially claiming ownership over them. You aren't doing this to, like, help them learn and, like, let them go and be their own practitioner.
Mhm.
It is it's rough, and it essentially proves that. A lot of the journals themselves were actually indecipherable and continue to be this way to this very day,
Mhm.
because many of the entries were just a series of symbols or mapping out the results of different, like, shell throwings. In addition to this information, investigators also found lists of old clients, and the latest entry in these journals was dated to 1986, 3 years before this,
Jesus Christ.
which lent itself to the theory that these journals had been forgotten by Adolfo long before he ever went on the run. It was likely that, oh, these journals kind of filled up, so he just tossed them somewhere and completely forgot about
If you're
them.
doing illegal stuff, the worst thing you can do is keep a journal and then just, like, casually, like, ditch it.
A lot of the entries, though, weren't illegal. Because at that point in 1986, he wasn't exactly doing super illegal stuff. He was still doing illegal shit, but not like,
Not illegal enough for it to be, like, an issue?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
On a darker note, though, several of the rituals discussed in these journals referenced human, especially child, sacrifice.
Oh?
But again, no solid evidence was ever found to corroborate this. They then destroyed a number of the pages that featured prominent members of society, claiming that they never existed to begin with, like the pages themselves, and any mention of the potential association was dismissed as rumors.
Wait,
So
the cult did that or the, police did that?
the federales did that.
Oh, cool, so they tampered with the fucking evidence.
I mean, we see they have no problem doing that before. Like I said, everybody in this fucking story is corrupt. There are no good guys. Like, I hate to say it,
Yeah.
there is no good people in this story.
That's such
Except for
bullshit.
maybe the experts they bring in. They're pretty cool.
Yeah.
So the federales in Mexico City then sent what was left of the journals to Comandante Benitez, who is still on the border doing his own shit.
Mood.
So again, on April 14th, investigators also caught a break when the federales found a receipt with Omar's name on it, linking it to an address the police did not have the information for.
Oh, shit.
Be-
Dude.
because again, at that point in time, like, they were long gone after this, but they had been staying in residences that Elio didn't know about because Adolfo knew that Elio and the others were already talking, but he didn't know when they would spill the beans about different locations.
Mhm.
So he was like, "Okay, we know that they're talking. Let's go somewhere else. Let's go to places that they don't know about." And they go to this address and it's an apartment and they, like, are all geared up to storm the place.
Like, full SWAT team kinda shit.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Nobody ever shot their gun, but somebody almost did shoot their commander.
Mood.
Like somebody was just really jumpy. Whoops.
That's like that one guy on TikTok who was like, the reason why that one dude in Lord of the Rings shot early is because he was holding such tight tension in his bow that he just, like, let it go because he
Mm.
wasn't strong enough to hold it. That's a really weird random thing to mention, but that's the only thing I can think of in this case, sorry.
No, you're all good. So they found, like, they whenever they went, like, stormed the apartment, they didn't find anybody there except for Teresa Quintana,
Mhm.
Martine's sister,
Mhm.
while she was packing. So
That's
they
the
found,
worst place to be. Like, that's the worst position that you can find someone in is in the middle of packing their shit. It's like, go in.
like, but you have to remember that she was never involved in, like, the darker shit. Like,
Oh.
Martine never ever let her get that close. She was part of the cult, yeah, but only, like, on a very surface level. It was
Mhm.
very, like, she never attended any of the rituals. She only ever had cleansings done, because
Mhm.
Martine, who is again Adolfo's lover, refused to let her get that close. And I think it was he was doing it to protect her.
Yeah. That has to be a really hard situation to be in, to be the sibling of someone who did something so terrible is like you're really stuck in a weird place with that. I don't know.
Yeah, she didn't know any of it though. Like, she had no idea.
That has to be hard.
And she didn't find out until I think either right when she got arrested and interrogated,
God, imagine getting arrested and finding out all this shit. I
yeah,
can't imagine.
or like just before, because it was all over the news.
Mm-hmm.
And they had stopped her from watching the news. They had stopped her from like reading the newspaper.
To
So,
be able to see what was going on.
and she,
Jesus.
whenever they were preparing to leave the apartment, and they had to separate from her, they were told her like nothing's wrong. Just if anybody asks, we're going to Miami. So it sucks.
Leave Miami alone. Like, leave Brittany alone. It's me. But I'm leave Miami alone.
Well, Adolfo was from Miami. He was born there.
I know, but like, leave Miami alone.
That's fair. So they found her and immediately arrested her. At the same time that the federales were making this progress, the local investigators were connecting all of the murders from the Calzada family to La Claudia to the Matamoros killings all together. Had the two groups worked together and shared information, they would have noticed a common thread: a man named Jorge Montes. But they didn't, so that connection would have taken a lot longer to be revealed.
They didn't because they're dumb.
Exactly.
Got
So, Teresa was interrogated and she informed the police that Adolfo was planning on fleeing to Miami. She admitted that she knew next to nothing about what was going on until she saw news reports after she had parted ways with the cults. The federales alerted authorities in Miami to be on the lookout, but clearly they never went and it just wasted resources. The reports that the cult had fled boosted the morale of Adolfo and his followers, and when this was proven to be false, many, many false reports also came in regarding the cult.
it. Of course they
First
did.
was in regards to Sarah's quote unquote death, when her important documents were located at another one of Adolfo's abandoned properties. Wow, I almost said prophecies. Prophecies, no. Causing speculation that she had been sacrificed. They even wrote her an obituary that she herself
Jeez.
read. I couldn't find it. Yes, I looked. Next was a really weird thing. Like, it was super weird. Where a map drawn by the serial killer Henry Lee Lucas found its way to the police. It was drawn in 1985, claiming that Matamoros was the center of human sacrifice and Satanism. Keep in mind that this is a good few years before Adolfo ever stepped foot in Matamoros. So that's a little creepy. But all it really did was feed this secondary satanic panic.
Yeah.
Again, going back a couple days, on April 13th, thousands of parents took their kids out of school when a radio station reported that Sarah had called and threatened to start kidnapping and killing 10 children per cult member in custody until they were released, adding up to 40 children total.
Jeez.
This was proven to be false, but the threat was still being broadcast during the investigation. The public kind of hyper focused on Sarah for no other reason than the fact that she was so pretty, and compared to the rest of the cult, there was just no reason for her to be there. They portrayed her and Adolfo as like these lovers who started the cult together, who were killing people together. It was almost like a Romeo and Juliet type situation, I guess. No. The more appropriate one would be like Bonnie
Bonnie
and
and
Clyde.
Clyde.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, on April 16th, two more victims were discovered.
Jesus Christ.
Hidalgo Castillo had been begging the investigators to find his son, convinced that he had been a victim of the cult.
Oh.
When the initial bodies were discovered and his sons still hadn't been, he kind of turned to the local children to see if they had heard any rumors. Because kids in small towns.
Kids know everything. You know who also knows everything?
Mm.
Old ass women.
Oh, that's fair.
Especially
That
if
is
it's your
true.
neighbor. If you want to know anything, you go to the old ass women in your neighborhood, especially the ones that are always cooking something and their front door's always unlocked, depending where you live.
Depending. Yeah, that's fair. That fair? That's fair.
Door unlocked pending location availability.
Sometimes they leave the door open, but like the screen door is closed and locked. So, you know.
To let the air in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you end up like the whole neighborhood ends up smelling like whatever it is they're making or baking.
Everyone's up on a patio and someone's brought music, someone's brought beer.
It's a fun time.
We lived in broke areas.
Yeah. But it was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
So these children had. So Castillo took these rumors to the police and they finally agreed. They found the bodies of Moses Castillo and Hector de la Fuente 2 miles away from Rancho Santa Elena, and their bodies had been so decomposed that they practically disintegrated.
I will forever think that the fact that bodies can be so bad that they disintegrate, actually unnerving.
It was awful. So on April 17th, after finally cooperating for once, old man Seraphine was arrested after they had tracked him down. During his investigation, he admitted to knowing about the sacrifices but denied having anything to do with it. He admitted to being a drug runner and explained that that's how they were able to move up in life. He agreed to a plea bargain, agreeing to testify against the cult members, maybe even his own son, which has to be a heartbreaking thing. But the Federales wanted to keep this quiet because the information they received from Old Seraphine could be used to find and arrest Ovidio, one of the other brothers. Because there were 3 brothers that were involved with the cult, but not really. Well, not really, but like 3 brothers who were like involved in the cult story. Ovidio was one of them, and he was the only one who hasn't been arrested yet. Elio was one of the first people to get arrested. And then Old Seraphine wasn't really involved with the sacrifices or the cult himself because his wife was like super Christian and was like, absolutely not.
Honestly, good for her.
And then Old Seraphine was just kind of brought in on drug charges because they can't really get him for anything else since he wasn't part of anything else.
Yeah.
So they wanted to keep, the Federales wanted to keep this quiet because the information that they had gotten from Old Seraphine could be used to find and arrest Ovidio. But then the Americans had to go and fuck it up again.
Damn it, Americans.
In an attempt to take the spotlight yet again, the Americans broadcasted the fact that they had located Old Seraphine and they were confident they knew where Ovidio was, causing Ovidio to once again go on the run. They were even so cocky about it that they literally went on live television and said they would have the whole clan in custody soon. They did not get the whole clan in custody soon.
Oh my god.
So, during this time, camera crews for documentaries like Brownsville, A Tale of Drugs, Death, and Satan swarmed the border.
Mm-hmm.
This again caused more and more confusion about the true crimes, religions, and focus of the cases. Like most American shit, these programs sought to centralize the American aspects of the case, focusing on Mark Kilroy and even claiming that all of these sacrifices actually happened in Brownsville, not Matamoros. Because Brownsville was the town in
Mexico.
Texas. No.
Oh, Texas. They're saying it was in Texas when it was actually in Mexico.
Yeah.
Got you.
Because Matamoros is the town in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's on the other side of the bridge.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then Brownsville's on the other side of the bridge.
Got you. Okay.
So, due to how muddled the investigation was getting, the investigators called in 2 experts in the field from Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Rafael Martinez, an anthropologist specializing in Cuban ancestry, and Candace Leak, a consultant with years of experience in investigating ritual crimes.
Drama.
Yeah, she used to actually be really high up in the police force before she retired and kind of took on this, but because she was top of the police force in Miami, Candace Leak was, she has all this experience with dealing with this type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the anthropologist dude, Rafael, he's really fucking cool.
Mood.
Once they were brought in, they were informed that they only had 2 days to conduct their own investigations of the crime scene before they burned everything to the ground. So Candace would record while Rafael began to spread out everything and look over everything, because that's kind of where we get a lot of the pictures from the crime scene and stuff is from this video. They are essentially stills taken from these videos.
Yeah.
So after their investigation, they both agreed that this matched other Ngangas that they had investigated before. And this proved that Adolfo was actually indoctrinated himself, not someone who was operating with the bare minimum information. Because that was a theory a lot of people had, was that he was just some dude who knew
a little bit and was taking it too far.
Mm-hmm.
But it was worse. He actually did know.
Yeah, because it matched up so, it was almost identical to other Ngangas that they had discovered in not Mexico, in Miami.
Yeah.
So it was really weird. So they also noted that if the investigators were planning on burning the ranch, they had to make sure that they would broadcast it. We'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
Now, as the investigation progressed, Adolfo made sure to keep his followers in a routine, keeping them in line and loyal. However, during this time, Adolfo was not doing very well mentally. He would go on hours-long rants and tangents.
He's going crazy.
Essentially, yeah. He instilled in his followers the sense of paranoia, the idea that somebody had betrayed them, And he also reminded them that police could not kill them, but he could.
This sounds weirdly familiar, and I'm just struggling to figure out where I've heard of this before. Anyway.
If you're looking for the books, they're propping up my microphone now. Yeah, I know. A lot of cults you find, as like I do more cults, sometimes they all tend to, not like all of them,
They
the
like end
broad
the
strokes
same
do like
matchup.
match up a lot,
Yeah.
depending. Like the details will shift and change, but overall the broad strokes will be the same. So every 3 days they would pack up and move, moving from city to city, not straying too far from Mexico City because he wanted to stay like within a day's drive of Mexico City.
Mm-hmm.
Adolfo would constantly call Salvador and Carla demanding updates.
Mm-hmm.
Salvador would tell them that the investigation hadn't eased up, and Carla would let them know that a plastic surgeon and the hideouts that he had requested had not been found yet. After this bad news, Adolfo would set up the nganga he had taken with them and conduct a ritual. While possessed by Legua, he would say shit like, quote, "The animals shall not win and we shall kill them all," end quote. And while everyone else was just kind of like, yeah, sure, whatever. They hadn't been caught yet, yes, which was kind of a testament to that magic, but they were used to living essentially like royalty. This isn't living to them. Like, this is not what they're used to. This isn't good for them. They don't like it. So, when asked where they were going, Adolfo would reply, "To hell." Now, Aldubi was placed in charge of getting like food, clothes, and stuff like that. Omar and Martin were occasionally let out, but Adolfo and Sarah never left. Adolfo for obvious reasons, and Sarah because she was actually quite a flight risk. Everybody knew that Sarah would break if she were to get caught. So Adolfo never let her leave. On April 23rd, when the cult was in, forgive me for this pronunciation, I listened to a pronunciation guide for it and I still couldn't grasp it. So I'm still gonna try. It's Oaxtepec.
Okay.
It's named after a tribe that used to live there, I think.
Got you.
So it's the native. Um,
Got you.
yeah. So while they were there, Aldubi drew their attention to the TV. The news was broadcasting the burning of the shed and the nganga. So at first, Adolfo, when he saw this, was just dead silent. And then he began to scream. Over and over, just wordless screaming. He did so until his voice became hoarse. Until, like, there was nothing left. Like, he was just silently screaming in rage. Like, he pushed his voice past that hoarse stage that people can get to. And Sarah later said that even though like, they couldn't hear him screaming anymore, how loud and how, like, feral he got during it, you could still hear it. But this was actually not a live broadcast. The burning actually happened on Sunday the 22nd. And you would think that,
He would like feel it, right?
yeah, but the curandero, the holy, not I don't want to call him holy priest, the lighter priest, he required that this burning had to happen on the holy day, on Sunday. While the federales would hope that this would like erase the fear, like the burning the nganga, the experts actually disagreed. They knew that he had multiple ngangas and that seeing that he was no stranger to killing, another sacrifice was extremely likely. It was a more of a not if but when type situation. Like, they saw how deep he was in it and understood that he bought like for a good bit of his own bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was very into it. However, burning the nganga was designed to draw Adolfo out, make him slip up somewhere, just rattle him essentially, because that's their goal, is to get him to like make a big enough mistake to drag him out.
Yeah.
Once this was done, the burning was done, filmed by the experts and surprisingly by a classmate of Sarah's who wanted to use the footage for an anthropology project.
Me.
Dude, you would. This
I
is actually
so would.
Oh my gosh, were you Sarah's
Oh
classmate?
my god, it's me. This is ghost written by me.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, against advice, the Commandante didn't mass release the official recording, but Sarah's classmate actually sold it to a couple of major
Mm-hmm.
like news networks. So he
Mm-hmm.
got some money from it, but
Mm-hmm.
he basically ensured that Adolfo had seen it, essentially, by selling it to the major networks.
Yeah.
And while the Commandante didn't, like, oh gosh, how do I phrase this? While he wasn't the one who did it, he very much approved of the fact that somebody else was there. Because nobody stopped him. Like, there were, like, a good bit of people around, and I'm pretty sure everybody would have noticed a college kid standing there holding a fucking camera. But whatever. But from that day forward, Adolfo started carrying an Uzi with him constantly.
Oh, what?
Like an Uzi, like Uzi, like a machine gun.
Oh.
Yeah. He felt like he had been beaten, and now that the Nganga and its power had been exercised, he knew that his followers would begin betraying him, and that all of this would end with the cult's deaths.
Mm-hmm.
This was only confirmed when Salvador refused to help them any further, instead telling themselves to turn themselves in since Adolfo's magic had been destroyed. After that, Adolfo immediately forced Omar, El Dubi, and Sarah into a suicide pact.
Mm-hmm.
Martin was the only one who willingly agreed. Adolfo said, quote, "We'll all come back. I will lead us back from hell," end
Mm-hmm.
quote. They then decided to go back to Mexico City because Adolfo at this point was just done running.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, the local Mexico City investigators were working on their own investigation, like basically looking up information, I guess, on Adolfo, but like from different sources in La Zona Rosa, the red light district where he kind of had been for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But while they were doing this, the name Jorge Montes popped up.
Mm-hmm.
They were directed to the Calle Londres apartment as his most recent place of residence.
Mm-hmm.
And on April 24th, they arrested him. Under an interrogation, he admitted that he didn't know where Adolfo currently was. Had they come to him like 3 days prior, he would have, but now he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because he constantly moved around during this point in time. Like, he moved every 3 days. He did provide like a bunch of names and like other information, and Jorge Montes at this point was 54 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing the footage on like TV of him, like of not of him, but like of the Nganga burning,
Mm-hmm.
he decided like he just didn't have the energy to try to protect Adolfo anymore. He threw him under the bus for the murder of La Claudia, and also gave the name of Juan Carlos Fragosa, the other cult member who had been there that day,
Mm-hmm.
along with Omar. But that same day, Fragosa had been arrested, giving more information about the murders. Despite the fact that Adolfo had remained free, they had arrested 2 more people, the first people who had actual ties to the cult since the original 4 arrests.
Mm-hmm.
So they've essentially had kind of a breakthrough at this point.
Mm-hmm.
However, they could have gotten Adolfo that day too, except for a law that Mexico has.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Adolfo wanted to come back that very day, back to Mexico City, and potentially check in on Jorge. But he had to wait because of this anti pollution law. And there's this anti pollution law in Mexico City where you can't drive your car for 1 day out of the week. You get like the sticker printed out and given to you whenever you go to register your car. And whatever day of the week is on that sticker, you cannot drive that day. And
Mm-hmm.
if you are found driving that day, you could get hefty fines. And the day that they wanted to leave, that
Was on one of those days.
was on that day.
Ooh.
So they had to wait. So it was kind of like a weird twist of like luck almost. Because had they gone to Mexico City, they definitely would have stopped by Jorge's apartment. And Jorge had been arrested that day, so it was likely that they could have turned up in the middle of the arrest and then been arrested themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like that kind of weird luck that Adolfo seems to like kind of have that follows him.
Yeah.
So it wasn't great. So they waited to the 25th. And they went back to Carla's house, and Adolfo tries to call Jorge with no response.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next 2 days, from the 25th through the 27th, are spent in this kind of paranoid haze.
Mm-hmm.
Martin, Omar, and El Dubi were only speaking minimally, like with like one consonant, like words or like responses. They weren't speaking much at all
Yeah.
because they're fucking terrified. Sarah is constantly breaking down, and Adolfo had literally began to beat her when her hysterics kicked back up. Like, he would be hitting her and like kicking her, but like the entire time he's like speaking calmly to her, like, "That's it, love, be quiet. You just gotta calm down," while he's actively beating the shit out of her.
Yeah.
Carla and her boyfriend Enrique
Mhm.
Calzada, no relation to the Calzada family from the mass murder, as far as I know. Couldn't
Mhm.
find one. They took care of them and located another safe space for them. The cult moved into the rundown apartment at 19 Rio Sana on April 27th with some clothes and some groceries. They didn't even have enough supplies to build another altar. That is how bare bones they were.
Jesus Christ.
For the next 3 days, so until April 30th, the cult hunkered down, not going anywhere, but they watched the news constantly.
Mhm.
Given that the news have moved on, like because the arrests of Jorge Montes and Juan Carlos were not broadcast because
Mhm.
the local police kept that shit under wraps. Like Adolfo was like, "Oh, cool, the news cycle's moving on. That means they're moving on from us. Maybe they'll forget about us."
Yeah.
It was like a good sign to Adolfo, and Sarah wasn't convinced. And whenever she said something about it, Adolfo only slapped her across the face and told the others to have faith, otherwise, no one would live. And during this time, the landlady who they were renting the apartment from came by to like grab the TV because like there was an extra TV there that belonged to the landlady and she didn't have time to grab it before the cult moved in.
Mhm.
And Aldubi ended up grabbing it and giving it to her, but Adolfo was ready to shoot her. He is paranoid as fuck.
Yeah.
Everything is going downhill fast. So tensions were really high and the most mundane tasks were being fought over. And it got to the point where Omar, who had been pretty like quiet since all this started, he started complaining too, like along with Sarah. On April 30th, El Dubi decides to head out for groceries. And he tried to pay for the groceries with $100 US dollar bill.
Mhm.
So, thinking the bill was a counterfeit, the clerks at the supermarket refused to take it. So, he took it back and went to exchange it for the proper currency, like he was supposed to have done it like he was supposed to do that
Oh my
before.
god.
And instead of going to another store where he wasn't just at trying
Mm.
to pay with $100 bill that everybody thinks is fake,
He went to the same store.
he goes back to the same
God
store.
fucking damn it.
Nobody recognized him, but whenever he went back to the apartment, Adolfo still beat the shit out of him and like was throwing shit around. Like he was pissed. He was calling him stupid, like you could have ruined anything, you could have brought like them back to us. Nobody recognized El Dubi because again, their disguises that they had since like the very beginning
Yeah.
of their like time on the run still were pretty good. Adolfo is trying to maintain this like very strict level of control and trying to keep everybody busy. So he puts out this very strict cleaning schedule, like very, very strict. But it's not enough to keep people distracted from what's going on. Omar and Martin started fighting constantly, while Sarah was just like in a bad mood.
Mhm.
She wanted to get out of the apartment, and she actually claimed that she was pregnant as a way to garner sympathy from Adolfo.
Jesus Christ.
And she also was like leaving him like love notes and stuff. Like, and all of these love notes were in English so that none of the other people there could read them.
Uh-huh.
So that way they would only be for Adolfo. And it was just like this way trying to convince him to let her out of the apartment because she was going fucking stir crazy. He agrees because after a few weeks of being on the run, Sarah looked nothing like she used to.
Mhm.
Like, if you look at before and after pictures, Sarah before was very beautiful. She had kind of longish hair. Her hair was like really curly. But now she had dropped like 20 pounds. She was super skinny. She looked more tomboyish than she was before.
Mhm.
Like she looked very different.
Yeah.
The only people who would really recognize her were close friends and family, and Adolfo was like, they're not gonna be in fucking Mexico City. So
Mhm.
it's fine. Of course, letting her go out also came with the standard threat against her family's lives, but
Basic.
basic. So Sarah's mission at this point was to contact the plastic surgeon that Carla's doctor had recommended because Adolfo had kind of hyperfixated on the plastic surgery option as being the thing that would essentially save them.
Yeah.
So on May 2nd, Sarah was sent to a neighborhood pretty far from the apartment so that way she could use one of the public phones to call the plastic surgeon, who just straight up refused to do it. She literally was like, I know who, like, because Sarah literally said, Hi, I'm Sarah. And the plastic surgeon was like, I know who you are. Answer's no. Find somebody else. Goodbye.
Mhm.
Sarah took this opportunity as a chance to walk around, trying to get recognized, even asking a police officer for directions. Like, she is actively looking to, like, be
Yeah.
recognized,
Mhm.
but she refuses to turn herself in.
Oh my god.
Like, she is trying to, like, she's planning this thing on, like, how she's gonna get out of this by portraying herself as, like, a victim of the cult, like she was kidnapped or something.
Mhm.
And this is kind of where you see the first steps of that plan coming in, because she's been cooking this plan up since, like, the very beginning, when she realized that shit was hitting the fan and hitting the fan bad.
Yeah.
This was her, like, way to, like, escape, like, punishment, I guess, or
Yeah.
like, she she frustrates me. I understand that situations can change, but you also don't go writing love letters and claiming you're pregnant with the baby of somebody who's kidnapped you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's
It's a weird situation.
while she's out, she calls a neighbor back in Matamoros, basically to tell this neighbor and her family that she'd been kidnapped, but that she was planning on that she would be coming home soon. When this was done, she called Adolfo to let him know that the surgeon had turned them down, but that she was being followed, which is why it took her hours to check in. Like he picks up, like, immediately, and once he realizes it's Sarah, he's like, "It's been fucking hours. I swear to God, I feel like went to the cops about us." And she's like, "She said no. I'm being followed. Shut the
Yeah.
fuck up."
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's a lie. He sends her, like, to another location, basically trying to ditch her quote unquote follower, like stalker. And whenever she comes back, she's like, "Oh, I guess I was mistaken. Nobody was actually following me." But he starts screaming at her, basically saying that the only reason why he didn't kill her then was because the smell would attract attention. Like, he was pissed. So during all of this, Carla had come by to drop off, like, medication and like clothes and food and stuff for the cult, because El Doobie Doo fucked that up lovingly. He's a fucking moron. Carla starts, like, screaming at her too,
Mhm.
because Adolfo has this thing about making his lovers fight amongst each other.
Yeah.
And it is,
Still?
yeah. No, it is, like, that is something that never changes. Even in this situation, he is currently, like, feeding off of each other,
Jesus.
like, pitting them against each other. It is so fucking ridiculous.
And like for what though? Honestly.
I don't know. Power, probably. It
Yeah,
gives him a power
probably.
trip.
Yeah.
So she was drugged up, like, she was given a bunch of tranquilizers and locked into one of the rooms. While she was in there, she wrote a note claiming that they were going to kill the girl. I I don't know if this was an attempt to capitalize off the fact
Just
that,
a girl.
well, there was a girl who got missing in Mexico City
Oh.
around this time. There was no correlation. Sarah had seen the headlines while she was walking around.
Mhm.
So I wasn't sure if it was, like, an attempt to capitalize on that, or if she was the girl that they were going to kill or whatever. I don't know.
Mhm.
But she was also telling Martine that she knew that Adolfo was planning on killing her whenever they left Mexico City, because it got to the
Mhm.
point where she wasn't even included in the talks about the future anymore.
Mhm.
Like, she was there in the room, but he refused to even look at her, let alone speak to her.
Mhm.
Like, it was, I mean, I think that he was probably going to kill her.
Yeah, probably.
So it's unclear what she really meant by this, but she also laid out the address that they were wanted to police, and that Carla had helped them escape
Mhm.
before rolling up this window and tossing it out, like, not rolling up the window, but rolling up the note and tossing it out to somebody who was passing by on the street. Now, this dude didn't take it immediately to the police because he was like, "That's weird," but whatever. But he did turn in the note after, like, the shootout and everything happened. He was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
oh." But at that point in time, once they got it, it's kind of clear to investigators that this was just Sarah trying to further the plan of portraying herself as a victim.
Mhm.
Now, both Sarah and El Doobie's trips caught the attention of local police, who believed that they could be linked to the cult case. They didn't know where the cult was located, but they did decide to stake out the supermarket, which is, as it turned out, right across the street from the apartment in full view of their unit.
Mhm.
Granted, the police were in plain clothes and they were in a quote unquote unmarked car. So the way that unmarked cars work in Mexico is they're essentially sort of unmarked, but they're all black.
Yeah.
But on the sides of the car, so you can't see them from the rear view mirror if you're being chased by these things or if you're being followed by these things. But
Yeah.
on the sides of the car, there's, like, a long, like, serial number slash letters.
Mhm.
So, like, it's clear to everybody else that, oh, this is a police car.
Yeah, but, like, if it's behind you, you've no fucking clue.
Yeah.
Got you.
So that's kind of how those work. So when Adolfo looks outside on the morning of May 6th and sees these cars, he starts screaming that the cops had found them, that it was time.
Mhm.
He opens the window, aims the machine gun at an officer who was checking out an abandoned vehicle nearby, whispered, "Mother, this is it," and pulled the trigger.
Jesus Christ.
The bullets caught the officer, but he survived with minimal injuries, while the people on the street all scattered, screaming. Adolfo was also screaming that everyone would die and that he would see them all in hell. The police officers who were originally at the scene were essentially pinned in place as the glass in the cars and the supermarket around them shattered from the bullets, just kind of waiting for backup. Also, during this time, the local police were the first to turn up and take control, determined to take the credit so the federales couldn't.
Jesus.
Even as the people that they're looking for is actively shooting at them, this feud is still in place.
Yeah.
While all of that was going on, the apartment was going crazy with activity. Omar and Sarah were both crying and hiding, while both Martine and Omar were exchanging gunfire with the police. El Dubi was quite literally running back and forth grabbing ammunition. When the shotgun ran out of ammunition, which is what Martine had been using, Adolfo passed the machine gun to Martine and then started throwing cash out of the window before grabbing the gun and shooting at the people who ran to get the cash.
Jesus Christ.
One person was shot in the arm.
Mhm.
And then Adolfo tried to shoot a gas tank so that way it would explode, but it wasn't exploding. So he wasted so much time on that, trying to get it to explode, because the idea was like, okay, he's got all these people in this area with the money, looking for the money. He's going to make this gas tank explode, and then while everybody's distracted with the explosion and the money, they can make a break for it.
Mhm.
Except it doesn't explode. But while this is happening, sorry, I need to take a breath.
No, you're good. Take your time.
While this is happening, and at the moment that the stuff isn't working, like the plane isn't working, the police had gotten there and gotten the barricades set up and were taking shot after shot at the apartment. So they started, they got the barricades set up, they got the civilians out the way, they cleared everybody out, now they're returning fire.
Mhm.
When they realized that they were trapped, Adolfo ordered Omar to burn what was left of the money or he would kill him.
Jesus
If he couldn't
Christ.
have the money, no one else could. Omar obeyed, immediately starting to burn the money on the gas stove.
Jesus.
When Adolfo demanded more ammunition to keep shooting at the police, El Dubi revealed that they only had 2 magazines left. Adolfo then announced that it was time for them to die.
Oh, great. Amazing.
While the police continued to fire on the building, Adolfo took Martine's hand and then began to speak. I am going to read this next part verbatim from the book because Edward Humes put it better than I ever could.
Go off. Go off, King. Church is in session. Bitches, listen up.
So Adolfo says, quote, "Remember our pact. We'll die now, but we'll come back. We will be born again." Then he called Omar to him. "It's time, Omar," he said, offering him the machine gun. Then he wrapped an arm around Martine's shoulder, saying, quote, "Shoot us, then the others, then yourself. They think they have us, but we'll still escape them. We'll escape them in death."
Mhm.
Omar says, No, I don't want to die." He literally throws the gun down and then runs to the bedroom.
Mhm.
Adolfo follows him, saying, "Do as I tell you. We'll be together. I've told you I've been reincarnated 3 times already, and each time I move higher, I become more powerful.
Mhm.
In the next life, I'll be even more powerful, and so
Mhm.
will you."
Mhm.
Omar says, "No, I want to live." And he's under the bed at this point.
Mhm.
Martine says, "I'll die with you, Adolfo," and kisses his cheek, "as long as we're together."
Mhm.
Aldubi stands there, and he's so too much is happening. He can't focus.
Yeah.
And then Adolfo tells him to pick up the gun
Mhm.
and tells him to do it.
Mhm.
And Adolfo's like, "No, I don't want to kill you."
Mhm.
So Adolfo picks up the gun and slaps El Dubi whenever he refuses again. He says, "Do it or I'll make things tough on you in hell."
Mhm.
El Dubi says again, "I don't want to, Padrino. I don't want to kill you."
Mhm.
El Dubi takes the gun and everybody just goes quiet. And the only thing that they can hear is the apartment getting bombarded with like bullets from the police.
Mm-hmm.
So Adolfo says, "Don't worry, I'll be back."
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah at this point, who had been crying, was like, she's had enough. She looks up and she starts yelling at El Dubi, says, "If you're going to do it already. Do it now, now, now." And Adolfo is like, "Yes, finally you're back." Because he thinks that this is La Madrina coming back in full force. When times got tough, yeah, she kind of faded a bit, but now she's back when he needed her to be.
Mm-hmm.
Adolfo then leads Martine into the back bedroom. They walk into a closet, and Sarah can't see them anymore. Doobie follows them, and from her spot on the living room floor, Sarah can hear a door opening. So she's like, "Wait a minute. Are they sneaking out? Like, because this could be like a fake out, you know?"
Yeah.
And then she hears Adolfo say, "Do it now." And Sarah starts calling out, "Obey him, Doobie. Do it now."
You got this.
And El Doobie did as told. The sounds of him emptying an entire magazine into that little closet in that bedroom like echoes throughout the apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah initially thought that this might be a trick
Mm-hmm.
because there's no way that they're actually dead, right?
Yeah.
But she can't bring herself to go look. So instead, she goes and hides under the bed with Omar,
Mm-hmm.
terrified that Aldubi's going to come back and finish out the mission, like
Mm-hmm.
Adolfo said. Because the thing was,
Kill us and then everyone else and then yourself.
yeah. But instead, Aldubi seems to talk to Adolfo.
Mm-hmm.
He says, quote, "Padrino, now what do we do? Please, Padrino, you shouldn't have left us. Tell me what to do." End quote.
Hmm.
But no answer ever came. Instead, he walks over to the window, points the gun out the window straight down at the ground, empties the clip, and then kind of just collapses to the floor. He says, quote, "We're through. We're all dead. Let them come and take us." End quote.
Mm-hmm.
So Sarah scooches out from under the bed and immediately bolts downstairs, screaming and begging the police not to shoot her and to save her.
Mm-hmm.
When it was confirmed that that was actually Sarah and that El Dubi was being dragged down the stairs by police, they heard that Adolfo and Martine had been killed, but nobody was able to confirm it other than El Dubi, and obviously the police have no reason to trust him.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in time, the federales and other departments around the city were now all trying to take control.
Mm-hmm.
So the scene was chaotic as
Literally
shit.
pure chaos.
Yeah, you had two cult members come down. One of them is screaming, begging to be saved.
Which is not a normal thing to happen in a cult.
At all. So, if there was a time for them to make their escape, now during all this chaos would be the perfect time.
But they didn't?
They did.
Trauma.
Police officers went and locked down the apartment,
Mm-hmm.
finding Omar, who was still underneath the bed, and he was like ended up being dragged out,
Mm-hmm.
and two bodies in the closet. Now,
Me. Sorry. I'm two bodies in the closet.
from start to finish, this whole thing took only 45 minutes. All of that happened in 45 fucking minutes.
It's actually a lot longer than I expected it to be, not gonna lie.
But while confirmed at this time, like at that point in time, because they weren't sure if it was not LDB, they weren't sure if it was Adolfo or Martine's bodies because everything looked so different. Like they looked so different. At this point in time, Martine's body was riddled with bullets, the killing shot determined to be a shot to the eye, while Adolfo had been shot repeatedly as well, but especially in the face. Again, police were worried that these were decoys meant to trick the police. And that night, Sarah, El Dubi, and Omar were taken to be interviewed/interrogated. Up first was Sarah. Now, in the beginning, they really did think that she was a victim, someone who had gotten caught up in the wrong crowd of people and who had been kidnapped. The more she spoke, and the more she revealed details that she, as a victim, shouldn't have known, everything kind of fell apart. Like, they treated her so well. And then she started like talking about like how obsessed Adolfo was and how she knew all these things because Adolfo was like obsessed with her and everything.
She ran her own damn mouth.
Yeah, she did. Then like investigators would be like, "Isn't he gay?" And like Sarah's eyes would like glaze over for a second, and then she'd be like, "Yeah, but he was obsessed with me."
Disassociated out of the homosexuality.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Amazing.
Where it all fell apart was her desire to make sure that everyone knew how obsessed Adolfo was with her, while also trying to claim that they thought that she was going on vacation when they went on the run. But Sarah didn't tell her parents that she was going on vacation.
Oh,
Nor did she ever even pack a bag.
ma'am.
All she took with her were her important documents and, like, maybe the
Her important documents.
documents, you know what I mean? Don't be an ass. And just like a bag, like a smallest bag of her bare essentials. Like, it wasn't a lot.
The bare necessities. I really hate this movie. I hate that movie. So I really do hate that movie. Anyway.
Like, the lead investigator was like, you know who doesn't pack bags?
People going on
Fugitives.
the run. Yeah.
So he's like, why don't you tell me what really happened? And that's when she broke.
Oh shit.
So she broke and she spilled.
Uh-huh.
Omar was next, and it actually took 4 hours for him to break, including, like, with
That's impressive.
a little help from moral pressure. You know, the soda water with Tabasco sauce. Shake it up and send up,
yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Very creative. Ow. But given that he wasn't present for, like, many of the rituals that was going on, they kind of wanted to nail him on the murder of La Claudia.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like questions about food and water were completely ignored. They didn't even, like, say yes or no to any of things, like any of it. All they were asking him over and over again was who killed the queer.
Oh, that's a choice of words.
Yeah, that's what I said. And then finally, Omar snaps and claims it was all Adolfo.
Of course.
So
I mean, why not? He's dead. He can't say that he did or didn't do it.
I mean, well, Omar kind of helped lure him there, but he wasn't part of the murder. Like, remember, him and Jorge went out and walked the dogs during that murder.
Yeah.
He was like,
So
nope.
technically he's not lying. He wasn't there.
Yeah. El Dubi, like the cult members in Matamoros, was harder to break. He bragged about killing Adolfo on his orders and claimed that he would be back and soon. Nothing the police said or did would ever get him to break.
Mm-hmm.
He was laughing at the police, stating that even though everybody was going to hell, he would come back and the rest of them were just going to burn.
Mm-hmm.
So he's, like, feeling pretty confident.
Everyone else is going to be in a bad place, but, like, not me.
Like, I'll be going to the bad place too, but I get to come back.
Yeah.
You guys just have to stay there.
Jesus Christ.
So, in an attempt to break through, the investigators actually brought El Dubi to the morgue. One of them dragged him over to Adolfo's, like, corpse.
Oh, shit.
And the autopsy had already been done, so he's, like, completely
cut up, yeah.
Yeah, he's completely mutilated.
Jesus.
And the investigator grabs him by the back of his head, because he's also handcuffed behind his back.
Mm-hmm.
Grabs him by the back of his head and forces his head just inches above Adolfo's. Literally screaming, "Look, there's your godfather. Have him save you now."
Holy shit.
And El Dubi completely breaks down screaming, quote, "Padrino, save us." Like, and he is sobbing, he is wailing, he is not doing good.
I wouldn't be either, shit.
And that later that night, he just kind of broke and spilled everything he knew.
Oh, Jesus.
The three were then placed into solitary confinement, while Carla, her boyfriend, and the doctor were arrested for aiding the cult.
Mm-hmm.
A few days later, Salvador Vidal was arrested for drug trafficking, though not murder or assisting in murder, because, like, if you give somebody a weapon and that weapon is then used to kill somebody in Mexico, that is also considered a crime, because you just gave them the murder weapon, even if you technically.
If you hadn't been involved and given them the weapon, then the murder wouldn't have occurred. Kind of situation, yeah.
But the reason why the drug trafficking thing stuck and not murder was because everybody was like, the federales were like, I don't think your testimony, the testimony of, like, the other cult members, were like, I don't think that's credible. Federales just trying to protect their own people, essentially.
As they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Matamoros, the original members to be arrested hired lawyers who ended the interrogations, and they made their way into very comfortable cells.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody involved began claiming that their confessions had only occurred because of the torture at the hands of the authorities.
Okay.
Yeah. During the pre-trial hearings, Omar and Sarah were both seen giggling and gossiping together. While Sarah had managed to regain her weight and actually looked kind of healthy, if not, like, a little chubby after, like, in prison, Omar was getting sicker and sicker. He had been hospitalized 3 times for fainting spells since his arrest, and he had like these brown spots forming on his face and his skin.
Mm.
So he's not doing well. But Sarah Maria Albrede Villarreal and Alvaro de Leon Valdez Aldubi, his real name's Alvaro, but they were charged with 2 counts of murder for Adolfo Martin, 13 counts of murder for the deaths at Rancho Santa Elena, and multiple charges for drug trafficking, criminal association, and cover-up. Omar Orea Ochoa was charged with the same charges, with the additional charge of murder for Ramon Paz Esquivel, La Claudia. Jorge Montes and Juan Carlos Vergosa were also charged for the same murder of La Claudia.
Mm.
Elio Hernandez Rivera, Serafin Hernandez Garcia, Little Serafin, David Serna Valdez, the Flirt, and Sergio Martinez Salinas, the Butterfly, were charged with 15 counts of murder, a number of weapons and narcotics violations, cover-ups, and burial law violations because of how the bodies were buried
Yeah.
at the ranch.
Mood. That's such a petty charge.
Maria
Be
del
like, not only did you murder these people, but you buried them wrong.
Sucks. Maria del Rocio Cuevas Gorria, also known as Carla, Enrique Calzada, and Dr. Maria de Lourdes Bueno Lopez, the
Mhm.
doctor who helped them. They were all charged with cover-up for helping the cult members and concealing their knowledge of the murders.
Mm-hmm.
Domingo Reyes Bustamante, the caregiver, like the caretaker at the ranch, was charged with cover-up as well. And Salvador Vidal Garcia Alarcon was charged with cocaine possession and sale. In August of 1990, El Dubi was sentenced to a minimum of 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah was convicted of helping the cult, but not of the murders of Martin and Adolfo.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, she was sentenced to 5 years in Mexico City before being convicted of the murders on the border with the original 4 cult members from Matamoros. And all 5 of them were sentenced to 62 years in May of 1994.
Mm-hmm.
However, the Matamoros 4 got their sentences reduced to 50 years in 1998.
Mm.
The rest were sentenced from anywhere between 5 and 62 years.
Jeez.
The specific, sentences for each person I couldn't find,
Mm-hmm.
outside of the major players.
Yeah.
So it was just like a mix, it was between that range.
Something about like that.
However, Omar was the only one who wasn't convicted. He
Oh.
actually died on February 7th, 1990 from complications due to AIDS after 20 days in the hospital.
Oh. Okay.
So those spots that was forming on his skin, that
was AIDS.
Yeah, that was his immune system literally breaking down.
Oh shit.
Nobody thought to test the other cult members for AIDS, but
Yeah.
But he was literally dying from AIDS.
Oh.
And it's likely
It's kind of
that
sad.
yeah, had they continued on to be on the run, it's likely that he would have died a lot sooner.
Oh yeah.
Ovidio Hernandez Rivera and Malio Fabio Ponce Torres both remain on the run. They have not been caught or sentenced
Still?
to this day.
Holy shit.
If the cult members were ever to be released from their Mexican prisons, they would be extradited to the U.S. to face charges for the murder of Mark Kilroy. As far as we know, Palomayombe in every form is still very much alive and thriving. But as far as I know, Adolfo Constanzo still has yet to return as promised. That is my case.
Oh, you had to end with such a banger one-liner. Damn. Fuck you.
But I'm not quite done.
Oh, we have the movie reviews.
First, we're
Yes.
going to talk about the girl who celebrated her quinceañera
Oh my god.
at one of Adolfo's homes. So I'm going to be reading directly from this Vice article that was published
God, I love Vice.
on December 9th, 2021 at 4 a.m.
2021? In Beyonce's year of 2021. Holy
Yeah.
shit.
So, a teen girl celebrated her 15th birthday in Mexico.
Her quinceañera.
Her quinceañera. By posing for a photo in front of the house that belonged to a group of drug-dealing, Satan-worshipping serial killers from the 80s.
Not Satan worshipping.
Yeah, you'll see why, that pisses me off. But it's fine, regardless of this. Dubbed the Narco-Satanist house in Mexican media, this now abandoned home in the border city of Matamoros was connected to more than a dozen ritual murders committed by cult leaders Adolfo Constanzo and Sarah Adorete and their follower followers, including the death of a U.S. student on spring break in 1989. The photo shoot in front of the graffiti-covered house was taken to celebrate the teen's quinceañera, a popular tradition in Mexico and other parts of Latin America similar to a Sweet 16 birthday party.
But, like, why?
Generally, quinceañera photo shoots feature their 15-year-old girls in lavish dresses in bright colors like pink, yellow, or turquoise. Sorry, I'm reading this. Shush. I'm reading directly from the Vice article. Don't come for me.
Torcos.
Shut up. The Matamoros teen chose a black dress instead, and I'll show you the picture after I read this.
Oh, she's a goth.
She like her face is blurred out to protect her identity.
Oh, yeah, she's 15. She's not even an adult. Oh, wait, she's not even an adult yet. Or she just became 18.
Yeah.
Damn.
After being posted by the event coordinator, Carmen Colmenero, the photo quickly spread on social media platforms and drew a wide range of responses.
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock.
Comments on the event planner's page were mostly positive. Quote,
What?
"The coolest quinceañera," wrote one. Quote, "Pretty dress, cute quinceañera, indeed a place out of the ordinary, although I wouldn't have set a foot there. I imagine your courage," quote, wrote another. Comments on the news articles about the photo shoot weren't so kind. Some hurled insults at her and her family, while one commentator pointed out that the girl's parents paid for the party and appeared to agree to a photo, quote, "in a place where torture and other crimes took place."
Mm-hmm.
Others were more diplomatic. "If the girl likes that dark vibe or whatever, it's fine. No one is the same as anyone else, and we should stop complaining about everything," one comment read with more than 100 positive emoji responses. And then it goes into the backstory of the cult with why did you throw in voodoo in here? The two reportedly developed a made-up hodgepodge cult. Okay, well, Sarah wasn't really involved in the creation, but go off, I guess. Sorry.
Oh my god. Are you really roasting this article right now?
Yeah, I am.
Amazing.
While the abandoned house in Matamoros where the photo shoot took place was not the site of the group's most gruesome murders, it's reportedly where Constanzo and others lived during the murdering spree. Over the years, it's gained a haunted house mystique in Matamoros, with numerous videos online of people exploring the building at night, hoping and fearing at the same time that they will encounter the remnants of the narco-Satanist black magic. Now, look at this fucking dress, though. Like, it's so gorgeous.
That is... Wait, give me your phone. That is a very, very pretty dress.
It
I will give
is.
her that. It's also not what I was expecting house-wise. I mean, the thing is even if she... if she just lived in this area and was like, oh, some crazy cult used to live there, like, knowing the context that we have now, like, that's really outrageous. But if you lived somewhere and you were, like, going for the dark vibe, especially on that staircase with that book, like, if you like that dark theme and you're just like, oh, yeah, some crazy cult used to live there, I'm just taking a photo in front of it because it looks like that, I kind of understand that. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I'm saying, like, I understand why that's a thing for her because it does look like that. I mean, it fits I think the vibe that she's trying to go for in the photo.
Absolutely. Now, like another thing to like end off on, because I'm determined to make sure that this ends off on a not a happy note, but at least a funnier note than what we started with. Some reviews from the horror crime 2007 rated R hit film Borderland, whose the events of the movie were inspired by this cult.
Amazing.
I'm not going to give you any more context other than that.
I'm so excited because we're probably going to watch it.
Oh, absolutely. I can't say, this person said, I can't say one of the worst slashers, but definitely one of the worst horror I have seen in a long time. Boring and not entertaining. I was actually hoping it would end sooner. It's just not a good movie. Actually, very bad.
Amazing.
This one isn't a bad thing. It's like a 3-star review, but what's in it is great. I am glad that I watched it. Some scenes were very intense, like the two prayers against each other at the sacrifice scene. Good and evil. It makes you think and realize again that there is a very dark world that most of us don't know anything about.
What?
I don't know.
That's
Some
absurd.
1-star review. Google or YouTube the real story. This is a terrible, quote, inspired by true events, end quote, movie. This couldn't be any further from the facts of the real case.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, this has nothing to do with the game of the same name. I came here for that actually, but was disappointed as hell.
It's called Borderlands?
It's called
Oh,
Borderland.
no. Oh, no, because I actually know that game, too. Oh, that's a terrible thing.
Oh, it was so bad.
That person deserves to have their therapy covered.
That person does.
So sad.
That was all the Google reviews, but like
Oh my god.
that is
That poor Borderlands person, man. That's great.
that is my case, and it's a lot. It's
hmm
really, really heavy.
And it's just gonna get heavier because I'm ending on a bad note, too.
I'm just happy that we're done with.
You're done. High five.
I still have to edit this, and I have
But
to listen to all this again. But
that's done.
I don't have to research it anymore. I don't have to talk about it anymore. We're
I think
complete.
if we were ever gonna make a we'll talk about it after the podcast kind of episode, this would be the series that we would do, or just a whole episode of just talking about the shit in this episode.
Honestly, what I would do for like an after, like talk about the
Like an
episode
after chat kind of
after
a
chat
thing.
thing would be watch the movie Borderland.
Yeah.
Just that way we have our own reactions to
I
it.
would probably watch the
And then
play Anastasia.
I really want to watch the musical Anastasia. It looked like it's so much.
We should do that.
Yeah,
we'll
we
do
should.
that. We'll release it
And
eventually.
then we should
Maybe next month.
also watch the docuseries because if with Sarah as the main focus, I can't wait to hear what this bitch says. Like I am
Amazing.
so ready. I'm not ready for your case.
Yay.
I'm not ready.
Well, we're here. You're gonna watch it for me? Okay, so today, my section, I'm going to be talking about the end period of the Romanovs. So, just to give you guys a little bit of heads up, I did try to follow this as much of a timeline as I could. So, we are starting off in the very, very end, literally the last 2 days of 1916. And we are going to be picking up we're starting there. We're going to end roughly July 17th, and then from there we get into the nitty-gritty of the after the Romanov series period. Cool. So, also just a heads up for anyone who's wondering, I did my best to keep these dates for this as the new system calendar. It does switch over in the midst of the notes, but I did my best to convert the dates. I might be a day or two off on my notes because I do an exact calculation. It looks about 13 days difference between the old calendar, the Gregorian calendar, and the Julian calendar. One of them swapped. I don't know which one we're on now. I think we're on the Julian calendar.
I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure we're on the Julian calendar. Just a heads up, I tried to do the best I could. So we are literally picking up exactly where we left off last episode. So December 30th, Rasputin is executed. Right? So, but ahead of time, before this, to give some context on what's going on. So that whole year leading up to it, Rasputin was off his fucking rocker.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, so at this point also, the war had started about 2 years before, right? The World War One had started about 2 years before. And this is also after Nikki had taken over the military commanding for the army, right? So Rasputin had actually previously predicted that this war would be absolutely terrible for Russia. He knew it was going to be a bad idea. He didn't want Nikki to take over the military. And when Nikki decided to ignore him, he became extremely distraught to the point that he literally just drank himself into oblivion to try and process everything. During that time, it's also said that he bragged about having control over Alex, saying, I can make her do anything.
That's gross.
Now, I'm not sure if this is true or not. However, Nicholas did end up bringing Rasputin to Tsarskoye Selo and reprimanding him for what he said. And Rasputin said that he had been getting out of control, but recently it was just going too far.
Yeah, that's a lot to try to say.
At this point, with everything that was going on, Alex was getting so bad. The view of her was so bad. At this point, people were accusing her and Rasputin of being spies against the Russian government because of how bad they were handling shit, that other members of the imperial family were asking her to go to a convent. They wanted her to go to a be a nun, right? That's what that is.
Yeah.
They wanted her to become a nun for the sake of the everything.
Essentially, Catherine of Aragon.
Aragorn?
Aragorn? Yeah.
Basically. what else do you remember about this time? That's a little precursor to what's going on, but what else do you remember about roughly, like, the end of this situation? I know I kinda cut it up into each person's life.
I know at this time, like, Alexei had started to go to, like, not necessarily the front lines, but, like, the military.
Stavka?
Yeah,
Yeah.
with his dad and, like, loved it. I know the sisters are currently, working as, like, either working with Sisters of Mercy or
They
as
are Sisters of Mercy,
okay,
yep.
yeah. I was like, it's one of the 2.
Mhm. It's basically like nurse they're being, like, nurses, but I think it's, like, religious nurses, which I think is why
Mhm,
they're called Sisters of Mercy.
mhm. And then I know, again, wow.
Alexi and Alex is the 2 that you're
Alex
gonna have.
yeah, Alex is, like, completely off her fucking rocker
She
at
gets
this
worse.
point.
Mhm.
Oh, how does she get worse?
And do you remember what's going on in Russia at the time?
Yeah, it's like World War,
World War One has just started 2 years before at this
I
point.
almost said World War II. They didn't make it to World War One. They didn't make it to World War II.
They barely made it through World War One.
Barely. And I think that's it.
Mhm. So around this time in Russia, what's going on? So just a little bit of a precursor. So there's a bunch of issues with, like, workers not getting the rights that they need, all that shit. And on top of that, Nicholas did put in, like, a kind of government system thing that was going to be like a people's government called the Duma.
Mhm.
I think that's correct. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me. But the Duma just is not, it's not fucking working. Nicholas is
Yeah.
pretty much going like, no. Also, just a
That's okay.
reminder, yeah, just a reminder at this time, Nicholas is also of the opinion that God gave him the position that he has as czar. And so he doesn't believe that anyone else can really overlook his power. So the day after his disappearance, after Rasputin disappears, so the next day after he dies, we don't know, no one knows he's dead yet. Everyone is upset about it. Everyone mentions that he's gone missing. Even Anastasia has mentioned that he's gone missing at this point, which is weird for her. She doesn't give a shit.
Yeah. She's
Love her.
normally like,
Yeah, but she doesn't care. So, literally, the entire house dead silent. They are all waiting. Literally just sitting around waiting for word of where Rasputin is, what's going on, right?
mhm.
They all kind of had an idea of what was going on. They all had a rough idea that he was dead, but they didn't know for sure yet. They end up finding out later that day. Rumors had already gone around. Literally the next day, rumors were going around that it was Dimitri and Felix who had killed him. So they already know that he's pretty much dead.
Oof. And Olga's just sitting there like,
Yikes. Yeah.
fuck.
So
Mom's gonna kill me.
the next day, they kind of they kind of, figure it out, like, because they know that he's dead, and then they pull his body out, like, the next day, right?
Mhm.
When they found out what happened, a member of the personal, I wrote, it's like the ADC or something like that. It's the personal imperial police, basically. So it's the police specifically for, like, the one specific person of the family.
Yeah.
So someone that was inside of the house when this happened.
The call is coming from inside the house.
No,
Sorry.
literally. He was quoted saying they were in pain because the man was no longer among the living, but also because they sensed that with his murder, something terrible and undeserved had started for their mother, their father, and themselves, and that it was moving relentlessly towards them.
Okay.
Other people, I think it was actually Pierre, who said that it felt like the shot of the revolution had been fired when they killed Rasputin, and it really kind of was the beginning of the end. Alex really did believe that now that Rasputin was gone, their family was no longer safe, and unfortunately, that's very true.
I mean, I feel like with Rasputin there, their family wasn't safe, but like in a different direction. I don't think this family was meant to exist. Like, the more I learn, I really don't think this family
It
should have
it
existed.
feels
I
like this
feel
family is
so
cursed from the
bad.
beginning. It really does.
Like, I feel so bad for saying that, but that's like,
Yeah, I'm gonna warn you right now. It gets things have been bad. It only gets worse from here, and it really does suck. But it's downhill from here, literally downhill. So
of
January
course.
1st, 1917, Nicholas returns with Alexei from Stavka.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Rasputin's body has been pulled out of the water, I think, at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, Olga did write in her diary the day after the murder occurred that she suspected that Dmitri was part of it. Now, remember, Dmitri was actually one of the people that she was supposed to be, like, in love with. I'm pretty sure this is the same guy.
Mm-hmm. Hence the fuck.
So, January 9th by the old calendar, the 22nd as of the new calendar in January, Maria is officially presented to the court during a like celebration for Prince Carol. Carol was the one that had a thing for Olga, and then they tanned themselves up and went over to Romania, and he's like, I don't like these girls. Now the mom is still for some reason fucking hopeful that they're going to get married. I don't know why. And he ends up going after one of not going after, but he ends up like kind of flirting with one of the girls, and Nicholas does mention that he's okay kind of with maybe Carol being with one of his daughters, but Olga's already denied him.
Olga's
He
like, "No, thank you. I am good."
Yeah, at this time, I believe her like love interest back from the hospital. I
Mhm.
think his birthday passed over this ceremony that's about to happen, or that this ceremony that's happening. Now, as of my copy of the diary, she did not mention his birthday passing at all on either dates that it could have been. However, in the book, Romanov Sisters, it does mention that she recorded it in her diary, so maybe I just don't have it in my copy of Olga's diary, but I didn't see it.
Maybe it was like a different diary, because I'm sure that there's like multiple diaries that were burned, but like some were discovered at some point.
They
Some
were
were
all
discovered.
condensed together and published. It could have just been that the author of the person who printed mine didn't include it. And it is
Oh,
because
okay.
her actual verbatim diary is in the archives in Russia. This is a condensed down translated version of it.
Honestly, fuck that. I want the whole thing. Give me the whole thing translated. At least what's there that wasn't burned.
Yeah. So Maria was officially presented to the court. According to Tatiana, the day before or the day of, Maria had gotten so fat that she couldn't fit into any of the dresses. Any of her dresses.
Wait, so Tatiana said that?
Tatiana said that.
That
This is
bitch.
this is notorious for the family. They consistently make fun of her for her weight because she is pretty chubby according to them, and you have to remember that all the girls are relatively thin. This is a constant thing, by the way. She's the one that they nicknamed Fat Little Bow Wow.
I forgot about that. Wait, did you even say that? I don't know if you.
Last episode I did mention it. Yeah, they nicknamed her Fat
Oh,
Little Bow Wow.
I
Mhm.
am.
She
That's
was the one who
awful.
liked to sit on the she's the one who liked to sit on the Standard and eat sweets. Sweet
Honestly,
cookies.
me too.
No,
I.
literally. When she was first announced and entering the ballroom, she actually slipped in her high heels and fell. And she ended up laughing it off. She thought it was hilarious. And Nicholas is said to have said, "Oh, that's our fat Maria."
I would have kicked his ass. I would like say that to my
This is
face.
also like Carol's like, part. This is the same thing. Also something happened later that day. Apparently Nicholas ate shit at some point.
So it runs in the family.
Apparently. And
Fucking
also
hell.
someone knocked over a cup of coffee. I don't know if it happened on someone or just happened. But the night was just kind of like a good humor, dumb shit kept happening. But I love the fact that Nicholas just full on ate shit.
Like you have Maria eating shit, and then you have
Nikki
Nicholas
eating
eating
shit.
shit.
Yeah.
Everybody's just like,
Eating shit.
what the hell, guys?
hmm
But like, I can also see how that could potentially be almost like a bad omen. Like if things just, it's like the same idea as like your toast falling jelly side down.
Yeah. Or that's, oh, what were we listening to? I think we were listening to Stephanie. I remember playing video games while we were hearing this, and she had mentioned that there's a thing that hikers do where after 3 mistakes, whatever's happening doesn't happen.
Yeah, like if you go like if you're going out on a hike, or if you're going like to do something like slightly dangerous.
Like you like stub your toe, and then you
Okay,
like
that's
forget
one. Yep,
something,
that's two.
and then you like, I don't know, like I can't think of another bad thing.
Like you like like you stub your toe, you forget something that you need, and then if you like accidentally catch like say your jacket in the door when it's closing.
Yeah,
Like
like
any
that's
and
3 minor inconveniences. The day is like cursed. You can't go
you
because
have
it's
to
just
like
gonna get worse
postpone
from
it.
there.
Yeah. And if you're especially if you're doing something dangerous, that's just
Yeah,
you
you're
don't
just
fucks with that.
asking for it. So that kind of felt like everything that happened in this family. So
Just constantly. Nobody's listening to anybody about this kind of stuff. It's just like, oh yeah.
no, literally. So about a month after the murdering of Rasputin, Olga was documented saying that she felt that maybe it was necessary for Rasputin to be killed, but that it shouldn't have been so terribly done. She felt ashamed of the fact that relatives had been the one who had done it, but it kind of seemed like she really understood what was going on with Rasputin kind of obsessing over her mom, and her mom obsessing over Rasputin. She kind of knew what was going on. Olga also had a very deep understanding of what was going on in the country, and she became very depressed and anxious, literally developed an anxiety disorder.
Oh, jeez.
She also was a very, very sensitive person, and she was a pacifist at heart. So the revolution and all the war going on, it really changed her, and she just kind of lost her like spark of life. Also around this time, apparently Alex had managed to obtain the tunic or shirt that Rasputin was wearing, and she would like it was like bloodstained, and she would like hold on to it and like cling to it.
What the fuck?
Well,
Okay,
so his body came into the possession of the Romanovs when he
yeah,
died. Yeah.
yeah, like, I knew that, but, like, her clinging to it is
She kept it as like a sacred object of someone. So like imagine like Adolfo dies and they keep his like bloodstained shirt as like a protective symbol, like this was his and this is what was his last moment. It's like gonna protect us kind of a thing. It's
no.
gross, but it makes sense.
It does, but, like, at the same time,
Like why?
no.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like, I honestly I kind of relate to Olga right now looking around as society continues to crumble around us.
Yeah, it gets worse for her.
Oh, wonderful.
So March 6th, we're still in 1917. So March 6th, Olga and Alexei so Alexei had friends over. At this time, I think Olga had like an ear infection, but Alexei had some friends come visit, and the one of the boys had a pretty bad cough when he was over. The next day, he ended up coming down with measles, which was like a huge
Oh,
thing back
no.
then. And I know you remember me mentioning this to you. About 10 days later, on the 6th, Olga and Alexei both came down with the measles. A month later, Tatiana would also become sick with the measles.
That's bad. That's not good.
So around this time, Nicholas knew that his family was sick. So he came back from Stavka for when Rasputin was killed, and he was like hanging out. Now he had to go
Mhm.
back to the front lines. He had to go back. So
For whatever reason, because he decided to put himself in front, like, in charge of the
which
military thing.
he should not have done.
I know. I'm still gonna rag
I
on this
know.
man for doing it.
So he didn't want to leave because his family was sick, but also like the people were getting really pissed off. It was really, really bad at this point. I'll get to it in a second. But he kind of did have to leave.
Yeah.
According to his brother in law, Sandro, it was clear that Alex's constant meddling in affairs of the state was dragging her husband into an abyss. Alex was quoted saying, "Nicky is an autocrat. How could he share his divine right with a parliament?" At this point in time, Nicky was so exhausted from everything going on. He didn't have the energy to fight. He didn't have the energy to fight with Alex. He didn't have the energy to fight with Sandro, his mom, anyone in the family, or the government. He literally just was like, I don't have control of my life anymore. It's in God's hands. Like he
I
basically was just like Jesus has taken the wheel. I'm asleep in the back.
Jesus has taken the wheel and is driving y'all directly to
The
hell.
problem is Nicky's not a bad person. He's a bad czar. He does not have the backbone to be able to take care of his country and deal with his issue of a wife. That's the problem.
He he's a spoiled brat, but and that doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad thing, but spoiled brats can't rule.
Mhm.
And that's just led
I
to
wouldn't
this.
say that he's a spoiled brat. We'll get into it more once he abdicates. Once he abdicates, you really start to see who Nicholas was as a person, and it makes a lot more sense.
I mean, that's fair because I imagine that like since becoming czar, like he literally said, "But I'm not ready to be," like
Mhm.
whenever he became it, which is obviously not the best thing you
The
could
thing,
say.
the first thing that he says when he abdicates really paints exactly how Nicholas feels about everything. We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Okay.
So at this time in Russia, I'm quoting this directly from the book because I think it's very important for this. So at this time in Russia, the transport system was in disarray due to fuel shortages. A lack of labor, horses, and implements was further affecting the production and transportation of food, which you don't think about. You know, not only are they having issues with food, but they're not have the fuel and the people to be able to run the trains to get the food out to people.
Holy shit! Yeah, you're right. You don't really think about that, and
No.
now it's like they're kaput.
There was no flour, and long queues could be seen everywhere for what little bread was baked. Virtually no meat was able to be had, and sugar and butter could only be found on the black market. There was no wood for fuel, and the streets were piled high with garbage, which made me think of France a few years ago. Actually, now I think. About this and the protests, Alex said, "It's a hooligan movement, young boys and girls running around and screaming that they have no bread only to excite. If it were very cold, they would probably stay indoors. But this will all pass and quieten down if the Duma would only behave itself." The Duma is the basically like the middle ground government between the people and Nikki.
I don't
I think
like
it's
that
honestly just like
sentiment.
a council to just make the people happy. They don't actually do much.
Yeah. It's a sentiment that I don't appreciate. I don't like this woman.
She's basically saying, "Oh, all these people are complaining because they don't have food and they don't have this and they want labor rights." Like literally, it's like a footnote in her fucking notes. She's like, "They'll shut the fuck up." Anyway, listen to this. Like literally.
Okay, no, well, that's not how we do things.
Yeah,
This is how your ass gets guillotined.
remember how people were making comics of Alex and Nicholas like bathing in the blood of people, like peasants? This is where that came from.
Oh.
Mhm. At this point, Alex was so sick that she was having Maria run around. She was calling Maria her legs. She was expecting so at this point Maria was the only sister who wasn't sick with measles, but she was expecting Tatiana and Anastasia to die from measles because of how bad they were.
Oh, no.
Because it was, I mean, it was bad at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad now considering the multiple measles outbreak.
The stress of the family being sick, as well as just like fucking everything that was going on, was actually starting to age Alex. Her hair was turning gray. She looked deathly sick. Nikki would also look the same when he came back. It was advised by the Duma for the family to leave Alexander Palace because people were literally like rioting in the streets. Like there was drinking, there was gunshots. Like it was crazy.
I mean, I'm not surprised
Hmm.
given everything.
Like this is kind of when the not the preliminary government was starting, but like this is when that kind of civil unrest was really starting to hit like a lot of the major areas, and they're in Tsarskoye-Selo. Okay, I'm gonna mention this right now just because. Okay, so places, right? So we've got three cities that we're gonna talk about, three places we're gonna talk about right now. So we have Petrograd, we have Tsarskoye-Selo, and we have St. Petersburg, right? So, Petrograd is St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg is the nearest capital city to Tsarskoye Selo. Tsarskoye Selo is where Alexander Palace is. It's 30 miles south of St. Petersburg, which is the main capital city, right?
Mhm.
Of, everything going on at the time. At some point, St. Petersburg gets renamed to Petrograd.
Mhm.
That's what's happening here. So if I mention St. Petersburg, I'm talking about Petrograd. If I say Petrograd, I'm talking about St. Petersburg. But if I mention Tsarskoye Selo, all you really need to know is that town, Tsarskoye Selo, that's where the Alexander Palace is. That's pretty much what it is. It's just the area around Alexander Palace, which is the home of where they're staying at the time. It
Mhm.
actually wasn't the main palace for them. They stayed somewhere else, but they ended up moving to the Alexander Palace after Bloody Sunday.
Okay, and remind me what Bloody Sunday is, or are you going to talk about it?
Bloody Sunday was when way, 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 way back, the protesters had marched up to the palace, and the palace had opened the palace guards had opened fire on the protesters, even though the
Oh,
family had been evacuated the night before. That was
yeah.
Bloody Sunday.
Okay, I
Mhm.
remember now.
That was way, way back.
Okay, yeah.
So the Duma, the like people government, they were advising for the family to get moved out of the Alexander Palace because of how dangerous things were being. However, Nicholas sent a notice saying that he wanted his family to stay put until he returned from the Stavka. He was supposed to return soon. Now, the children at the time, all of them were sick, right? And Alex is running around trying to take care of all of them. She's not doing well.
Yeah, I imagine not. I don't like this woman, but I also kind of
She's
there's a
doing
lot going on.
Yeah, she's doing the best with what she can, but it's hard. So the children were very, very sick, but they were able to hear the screaming and gunfire from the city in their room.
Holy shit, that's not good.
I know.
What the fuck?
But they were asking what was going on. Now, a friend, I think it's a friend of Alex, she came over to visit at the time. Her name's Lily.
Mhm.
Or Lily. It's Lili. I'm assuming it's Lily. Now she stopped by to take care of the kids, and she was trying to hide what was going on because Alex told her that she didn't want the kids to know what was going on at all. So none of the kids knew that there was a revolution going on. None of the kids knew what was going on except for Olga. She was the only one who was aware enough to know. Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, Alexei, they had no idea what was going on.
I feel like that's just insulting to your kids.
So she was just basically saying that, like, oh, it's just like roughhousing that's going on like way farther away, but everything sounds louder in the winter, which it doesn't. It actually sounds worse, like quieter in the winter because snow muffles a lot.
Yeah, it was
Yeah. And then, but at the time, like these kids are like deathly sick. Olga had told her that you can see how even Mama is nervous. We are so worried about her sick heart. She's overtaxing herself too much. You must absolutely tell her to rest. Olga is currently sick with the measles and an ear infection. She ends up having inflammation of the brain soon. They're dying. These kids are dying right now.
Yeah.
Like, they fully expect the youngest two that are sick right now to die. Alexi's almost on his deathbed. He gets worse, if you can believe that.
Holy shit.
And they're
And
sitting
combined with
here,
his hemophilia, that's not gonna.
and the doctors are literally like, these kids were on oxygen tanks at some point with this. And they're
Jeez.
sitting here being like, tell mom to relax.
No. Like, they should not have to worry about that regardless. They're fucking
N-
sick as fuck,
no,
and
I know. Trust me, I know.
I hate this woman. Okay.
I know. So, the 11th, the streets of St. Petersburg are dead silent. There is nothing. There's no one on the streets. There's no carts on the streets. Nothing. It is dead fucking silent.
That's a bad sign.
The 12th, like kind of into the 12th,
Mm-hmm.
Alex goes out and tells her people, her guards, she's like insisting that they come inside. They're not coming inside. And she tells them to make sure that no blood is shed on their account. She doesn't want anyone to be killed because of them, because they're in the palace, right?
Mm-hmm.
That night, most of the servants in the palace flee. Most of the people in Tsarskoye Selo dip the fuck out. The
Okay.
next morning, revolutionary protesters are heading to the Alexander Palace. They are walking or riding carts 30 miles into Tsarskoye Selo from St. Petersburg. They are marching in on the Alexander Palace fully armed. A large machine gun has been placed in the yard out front of the palace to defend it. And all of the royal imperial police are fully armed with bayonets.
Jeez. Okay.
The kids still don't know what's going on.
How?
Anastasia actually remarks that Nikki would be really, really surprised by how cool that gun is. She has no
Oh
idea
my
what's going on. They
god.
have no idea. Literally no idea.
Sweetheart, no.
I know. So the 13th, so the revolution, it started. The
Mm-hmm.
13th, Alex begins frantically sending out letters and telegrams trying to get in contact with Nicholas because she's not getting information back. And he was supposed to be back that day or the day before.
Yeah.
So he was
So
supposed to be back by now. They're not getting information back. The revolution started and she knows it. So the revolution started. Nicholas is supposed to be coming back. He's not responding to anything with her. No one's getting information in or out. She's panicking. She probably thinks he's dead at this
I
point.
mean, honestly, I would too,
Mm-hmm.
especially with everything going on.
And so what happened is his train that had been going into St. Petersburg, the railway lines were actually completely blocked by like revolutionaries. So they actually had to divert his train. Now instead of diverting it back to Tsarskoye Selo, they actually ended up diverting it somewhere else. And Nikki was forced to go there to meet with the Duma to be forced to abdicate.
He was forced to
He
abdicate.
was forcibly abdicate. At this point, Anastasia also came down with measles. This is the same day.
So like everybody's sick.
So
Nobody knows what's
so at
going
this
on.
point, Anastasia, Alexei, Tatiana, Olga are sick, and I think Maria's about to get sick. She gets sick soon, but I don't think she's sick yet. But she's also taking on a lot of the brunt of taking care of everyone in the house, including her mother, and Maria's not built for that. Tatiana was the one who was usually helping and maintaining her mom, and now it's all fallen on Maria.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then with all the servants fleeing, were they warned ahead of time? Like, I mean, they had to have been considering they all like fled the night before this shit
Yes, they
happened.
kind of knew they kind of knew what was going on. The staff were going in and out of Tsarskoye Selo, so they probably knew.
Yeah, I mean, that sucks that
Also, just a
yeah.
heads up, this is kind of sad. Maria was doing so much running around to help her mom that in this really short time, she actually started to get really thin. She
Oh
went from
no.
being a little chubby, according to them, she was actually really losing weight from running around so much. It was because they said the lift, I don't know if that means they had an elevator or something, but whatever the lift is in their house, it had broken. And so
Yeah.
Alex couldn't get out of where she was, and so Maria was the one running around the entire Alexander Palace for her. So
Of course, like nobody's communicating. Everybody's getting sick. It must feel like the end of the world. Like to his family.
It only gets worse. It only gets worse. So March 15th, Nikki officially abdicates. Now, again, I'm doing this by the new calendar, so if you look up the dates, it's going to be like 13 days. I think it's like the 2nd or something. March 15th-ish, Nikki abdicates. Now, one of the main reasons why he did this is for actually Alexei.
Mhm.
So Alexei, being a kid with hemophilia, if he were to live long enough to take over as czar, he would be required to be under the regency of Grand Duke Mikhail, which is Nikki's brother, I think, or uncle or something.
Mhm.
Because of that, Nikki and Alex would no longer be considered royalty, and they would be forced to leave Russia and go into exile.
Yeah.
That means that they would have to leave Alexei behind, and Nikki
Oh.
wasn't ready to do that. He could not leave his son behind. So he chose to abdicate because he didn't want to risk him being separated from his son. He also really did think it was a good idea for the people. He thought at this point, he was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. This is not what people want. I'm done. The first thing that he says when he officially abdicates, he turns to his royal like entourage, not entourage, but like his royal police, the like czar's escort. That's what it is, the czar's escort. He turns to him and he says, now that I am free of my responsibilities to the nation, perhaps I can fulfill my life's desire to have a farm somewhere in England. That's the first thing he said.
Wait.
Mhm.
I hope I know how this ends, but I really hope he eventually does get his farm
He kind of
in the
does.
afterlife.
He kind of does. He kind of does.
Okay.
So at this point, I know it. I'm so sorry. It gets sadder from here. You can imagine how hard this is for me because I'm really attached to these girls. Like I was sitting here earlier. I'm tearing up. I was sitting here earlier and I was looking at my book, the Romanov sisters, and there's a photo of them on the front, and I looked at them and I was like, oh, like I was looking at their faces. I was like when I first got that book, I couldn't tell you which one it was, and I was like, oh, there's Maria, there's Anastasia, there's Olga, there's Tatiana. Like I knew immediately who these girls were, and I could tell you so much about them. It was really hard. So
Oh no.
it only gets worse from here. So at this point, Olga had been coughing so much that she had actually fully lost her voice. Tatiana was completely deaf, temporarily, but completely deaf, and her head was completely covered in bandages. Both girls had abscesses in their ears. At this point, much of the military at the palace had left. They had a very small garrison of people who were still like monitoring the palace. Some of the servants had managed to get back to Tsarskoye Selo from St. Petersburg on foot.
Okay.
30 miles. They walked 30 miles from when the revolution started back to Tsarskoye Selo just to get back to the imperial family. Because traffic in and out was not happening because that whole area had been taken over by the revolutionaries at this point.
So they fled because they saw the writing on the wall and like probably heard some shit, but then
No. Staff who had been stranded in St. Petersburg
Oh,
during the
okay.
revolution
Okay,
had
so
to walk back on foot
so
just to get
not
back. No. Different people.
okay, got it.
Yes, people who were loyal to the family stayed loyal to the family the entire way through. But some of the staff literally got not abandoned, but they were stranded in St. Petersburg the night before the revolution, and they weren't able to get back to the Alexander Palace, so they walked 30 miles on foot back to the Alexander Palace.
That's loyalty.
Mm-hmm. At this point, news finally came in that Nikki had abdicated. Now, it was a rumor at this point, but they still haven't heard from Nikki. They haven't heard from Nicholas. They just know that he's abdicated. Alex was a complete mess. She was completely distraught over the fact that she was no longer an empress, but she said that bare minimum, she was still a sister of mercy and she could live with that. So, whatever. This gets really sad. I'm sorry. I mean, it only gets worse, but
I mean, it's been okay.
at this point, Maria becomes aware of what's going on. She took the news extremely hard. Someone had come in to talk to Alex, and on the way out, he had had a conversation with Maria for about an hour. Afterwards, she knew everything.
Oh
It said
no.
that Maria had almost an immediate shift over the few days before he had seen her, from a very childish girl to a fully aware and confident woman. She was aware of what was going on and she took it. He was very surprised with how mature she was. However, later that night, Lily said that she heard the sound of weeping, and when she went into the room, she saw Maria crouched in the corner. She was as pale as her mother, and Lily immediately knew that Maria knew everything. She said she was so young, so helpless, and so hurt. She was struggling to take care of her mom and all of her sisters the way that her sisters were able to take care of them. All of the weight of taking care of the family had gone from the two older sisters to just Maria, who was the third daughter. She's the second youngest daughter. She is not even, I don't even think she's like 16 yet. She's young. I don't know how old she is, but she's very young. At this point, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
It's bad. At this point, Alex started asking everyone that she met to take off their imperial signia because she didn't want them to get attacked when they left the palace. She didn't want drunk people and revolutionaries to see the insignias and attack them, so she rather them take them off now instead. Sometime before the 18th of March, the phone lines were cut in the house, so anyone trying to make a phone call into the house could not reach them. I don't know if this was someone in the house had cut the lines or the revolutionaries had cut the phone lines into Sarsaparilla, but there was no way to get any calls in and out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So they were completely in the dark.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Now, it was getting really dangerous at the house because they did have the military there guarding it, but it was not a huge amount of people. And this palace is massive. Alex started telling people in the staff that they could leave if they wanted to, but people like locals, like peasants, were starting to crowd the outside of the palace trying to look in. They were literally like piling up on the fences to try and get a look at the imperial family because they knew that Nikki had abdicated. So
Jeez. I mean, I don't even know what to say. Just keep going. I'm sorry.
6 days after Nikki abdicated on March 21st, they finally heard from him that he was okay and coming home. Later that day, the new head of... So, first of all, Nikki has not come home yet, by the way. Nikki has not arrived. They are just now finding out 6 days later that he's alive, right? Later that day, the new head of military in Sarsaparilla announced that they were shut up and considered prisoners. The new head of military walked into the house, dismissed the entire staff, the military staff that was on duty at the Alexander Palace, brought in his new military, had them stand out around there, and told the imperial family, "You are now prisoners in your own home."
Just like that.
Mhm.
That's
Just like that.
insane.
The head of the imperial police that were there, when he had to go say goodbye to the girls, he took everything in his power to not break down crying in front of them. He had been with these girls their whole life. They had to
Yeah.
say goodbye to the entire people of the Standard. The naval staff had already abandoned them at this point, but they had to send away everyone. But he said, like, the head of the police that was guarding them, he said that he had no idea how he managed to make it out of there without sobbing. He said he walked away and he never looked back because he couldn't.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
And what's really, really sad about this is every single point in these girls' lives, every single person that is supposed to hate them loves them. Every single person. Every single set of guards that guards them from this point on, even though they know that this family is doomed, they all fall in love with the girls. All of them do.
Even though they know that this isn't gonna end well for them.
They bare minimum know that the family is going to have to be exiled. I don't think they realize that they're going to get executed until way later on. But every
Okay.
single person that guards them up until this point, they end up adoring these girls. It's really hard. So, March 20th, Alex begins burning her letters and diaries, and Maria is finally sick with the measles. Now, March 21st, they finally okay, so sorry, I got out of order. So, day before this happens, the imperial family gets taken over, whatever. Alex starts burning her letters and diaries. She does this for about the next 2 weeks ish, on and off.
I mean, that's smart.
She only keeps letters that she thinks paint her in a way of a Russian loyalist. So she only keeps letters that make it seem like that she literally burns anything that anyone could skew as her not being a fan of Russia. So she only keeps things that show her Russian pride. Now, she is proud to be a Russian empress, but she only keeps things that are very clear of that. Also, after this, to the next day, right? I'm going to jump back a little bit, but the next day after she does this, she is told by one of her maids to stop because half burned pieces of paper are flying out of the chimney and the men on guard were picking them up and reading them.
Oh
Now, I want you to
no.
remember way back to episode 1, Alex kept all of their letters.
Including so they were reading her. No.
I'm assuming so. I'm assuming she kept
Oh
them, which means
no.
she's basically letting these guards that are now having to take care of her and her, like, guard her and her kids, even though they're prisoners. They're reading basically like her and her husband's like Victorian sexting.
I think I would actually just straight up kill myself.
It was great.
Like,
That was my
no.
immediate thought was, "Oh my fucking god, are they reading her porn? Her own porn?" Anyway, so at this point, now this might have been for the best. Sidney Gibbs, remember this guy?
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
tried to get back into the palace. He wasn't allowed in. That's just a side note that I had, but the 21st, he wasn't allowed into the palace. He tried, but he wasn't allowed in. Now, at this time, they've officially abdicated. Alex finally tells the kids what's going on.
So now she told okay.
Anastasia was mad that they weren't told sooner about what's going on. Tatiana was so sick that she couldn't hear her mom at all. One of her sisters had to write down what was said and hand it to her. That's how bad she was. And Alexei was really confused. He was upset that he wasn't going to see his military people anymore. He was upset that he wouldn't be able to go to the camps. He was upset that he wouldn't be able to go back on the Standard, meet any of his friends of other imperial families. And he was confused about who was going to govern Russia now. He didn't understand that Russia could be governed without a czar. He's like, who's going to be czar? And it's like, there's not going to be a czar. And he's like, well, who's going to govern Russia if there's no czar? He didn't understand.
That's actually kind of heartbreaking. Wait.
I know. So jumping back to the 22nd when she's told to, or jumping forward to the 22nd when she's told to stop burning her stuff, Nicholas finally arrives. Now he arrives the same day that Olga starts suffering from inflammation of the brain from her measles. These girls are dying. I'm not even kidding. These girls are dying.
Yeah. Like all of this is happening. Country's in fucking chaos and your kids are dying. That's it. Wow.
So the new guards that took over, they made it their life's mission to humiliate Nikki. They would call him Little Nikolai and they would push him around. They'd blow smoke in his face. They'd hit him. They'd pull him in different directions and they would just laugh at him. But he refused to react to it. He would keep a steady face. He wouldn't react. He wouldn't engage in it. He wasn't dealing with it. Now, at the same time, Maria finally was getting to that bad point of measles, but she also developed pneumonia. She was so sick that she was completely delirious. If she was awake, she was insane, basically. And if she wasn't awake, she was knocked the fuck out in like the worst sick coma you could be in. Whenever the girls did manage to look outside, they were greeted with people making really obscene gestures and saying and calling terrible things. The guards had taken the pet goat that Alexei had out to the yard and shot it. They also killed the swans that were in the lakes nearby.
What the fuck?
And the rowboat that the kids had, they had put graffiti on it and covered it in human feces.
What the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
These are kids. What are you
In St. Petersburg, I think in St. Petersburg and Tsarskoye Selo, but probably mostly Tsarskoye Selo, the revolutionaries were trampling flower beds. They were destroying pretty much anything and everything they could. I mean, it really was just an all-out whatever. People were just drinking a lot. It was bad. They were just having random shootouts. It was weird. It was a time. April rolls around. Tatiana is finally getting better. But at this point in time, she's starting to get really upset because the war is still going on and she can't be at the hospital to take care of the soldiers. So that's a consistent thing with the girls is they just end up getting really upset that they can't be there to take care of their soldiers. Anastasia later says that she's upset that she can't visit the graves of the people that she lost taking care of them in the hospitals. And that was the hardest thing for her.
Oh, poor
At this point,
baby.
though, Maria and Olga are in critical condition. It actually becomes a huge thing. They're not well enough to move at all.
I mean, I imagine not. They're like
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. They're just
At this point in time, one of the daughters writes, "You are filled with anguish for the suffering of others, and no one's grief has ever passed you by. You are relentless only towards yourself, forever cold and pitiless. But if only you could look upon your own sadness from a distance, just once with a loving soul, oh, how you would pity yourself, how sadly you would weep." I think that was written from Olga to her mom.
honestly good. Call her ass out.
No, she's basically saying, like, you're hard on yourself too much. You take care of everyone else, but you don't take care of yourself. So yeah, there is rumors that at some point Nikki ended up giving Olga a revolver, which she would conceal in her boots while she was in Tsarskoye, and she would take it later with her to Tobolsk. However, when they were transferred and moved around, it said that she was forced to get rid of it. If she was found with it, it would just make it harder for her and her siblings. So, May, of 1917. So the family began to the thing is that right now they're really restricted when it comes to things. They're not allowed to leave the palace pretty much at all. They can't
Mhm.
really do much. So and they can't go out, and so they're just preoccupied with what they're doing inside. So they start making a garden in their area, and Nicky spends his time doing physical labor. He's making the garden, he's, cutting wood, building stuff. He's just doing labor outside. He does like workouts outside. The girls are occupying themselves by doing their lessons. Now that they're not imperial highnesses, they can do pretty much whatever they want. So they're taking history classes, they're learning different languages, they're taking culture classes that they couldn't take before.
Mhm.
The kids are kind of just preoccupying themselves. They're listening to music, they're playing music, they're going and playing outside when they can. At this time, Alex becomes obsessed with the Bible. She is pretty much just fully in the throes of obsessive religious scripture. She is
That's never
convinced that
good.
God's going to get them out of this, and she mentally was detached from the real world because of it. Never said it was great.
Yeah, that's not great.
So,
Uh,
in July, so we've got 1 year left for them to be alive. July, shit starts getting way more intense in St. Petersburg, and the people who are taking over and guarding the royal family, they're like, we need to move the family because the battle's basically coming to them.
mhm.
Like, we need to move them. Now,
Yeah.
the family wanted to be moved to Crimea, or the Crimea. It's a peninsula. I mentioned this to you earlier. I don't know if it's Crimea, a place, or the Crimea. They call it the Crimea. It's just Crimea. No, they wanted to go there because that's where the rest of the family was currently staying. It's like a southern peninsula in Europe. I think it's part of Ukraine, but I'm not sure on that.
Okay, so they just wanted to be near the rest of the family.
They also wanted to go south. It was warmer there. It's currently winter, or not winter, but it's a really cold summer right now
Mhm.
for them in St. Petersburg. So they wanted to go south, but the path down there was really politically charged and it was not safe for them to go, so they couldn't travel south. So, August 11th, they're told to pack their bags with warm clothes, and they're told that it's about a 5-day journey. Nicholas ends up figuring out that given this information, they're heading east to Siberia.
Welcome to the middle of nowhere.
I know. So they end up going to Tobolsk. Now, Tobolsk is I think it's kind of in the midst of where Russia ends and Siberia begins. Now, these aren't two different areas, but they're very different vibes.
Mhm.
So I think Tobolsk is on the very edge of that. Now, the way to get to Tobolsk, you take a train out there and then you get on a waterway. Now, the waterway is only available 4 months out of the year during the summertime. The rest of the time, it's completely impassable because of the
Mhm.
cold. They get on a boat, they head up to Tobolsk. Now, they're taken there to what used to be the governor's house, called the Freedom House on Freedom Street. Now they get there and the staff goes ahead of them to go look at this house, and they're like, this house is disgusting. It's dirty, it's gross. There's no plumbing, like there's barely electricity, like it's disgusting. Because before this it was actually being used as barracks.
Mhm.
So the family ends up hiring like plumbers and painters and all this shit cuz they're still, they have still money. So they end up hiring a bunch of people to go out and just renovate the house. So August 26th, the house is finally done. They buy secondhand furniture nearby, like they furnish the house, they make it look nice, right?
Mhm.
Fully repair the house. So they're in this area. It's not a huge house. They have a very small garden that they can work on. They are only allowed to go out twice a day, once between 11 a.m. to noon, and then another time after lunch until about dusk.
Okay. I mean, that kind of makes sense, I guess.
Yeah. At this point in time, all information in and out for the royal family was heavily monitored by the police that were guarding them. Anastasia actually began numbering her letters in case they weren't getting out so she could keep track of it. And when she did get back information from people, she would write back saying, I didn't get a response for this, this, and this letter, but all information was being read through by the police.
So she's smart.
Mm-hmm.
She's figured out what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like with like
Mhm. At this point in time, they were not allowed to be called by anything imperial. They were only called by their names. They insisted that the staff do that as well. Now, they didn't insist this. The people that were guarding them insist this. At some point between now and when they get to the House of Special whatever, I forgot what it's called. It's something dumb. Once they get there, some point, they're not allowed to speak anything other than Russian. Probably because the people that were guarding them only understood Russian. I think they thought that if they were speaking in any other language, they could have been planning like a way out of this.
Mhm.
So there's that.
Well, I mean, if your captors only know one language and you know several,
Yeah.
well,
So, Alex is getting worse at this point. Also, Tatiana's feeling better, but all of the kids are still very sick.
yeah.
hmm And during this time, Alexei has had a few bangs and bruises here, which are bad. So, February of 1918, we have finally switched over into the new style, so you don't have to wonder if I got the dates right or not anymore.
Mhm.
Not much changes. They're pretty much just going through the same mundane routine. Nicholas is reading to them every night. If they're not reading every night, then they are watching movies when they can, but it's mostly just them being read stories every night. The girls are keeping themselves occupied as best they can, but they are still very sick. Alex is just tapped the fuck out, basically. She's not involved anymore in what's going on.
Which is fucking ridiculous. I'm sorry. Like, I understand that there's a lot of pressure being the empress, but Jesus fuck, your kids need their goddamn mother.
Now, here's the thing. People in Tobolsk were still bowing to them and calling them the imperial family because news of the abdication hadn't got to Tobolsk yet. They didn't know that the revolution had started yet because they're still far out of Russia.
Yeah.
So they
Okay, that
had
tracks.
no idea. So around springtime of this year, people in Tobolsk start getting news the imperial family is no longer in power, and they see that that is a threat.
How is Okay, so how do they see that as a threat?
The imperial family is not looked kindly upon by anyone. So they're basically being nice to the imperial family because that's the imperial family, but now they're being told, hey, these people who have been kind of screwing you over, they're not in power anymore. So the police, the military that's taking over for them, the new government, the provincial government that's taking over for them right now, that's looking after them, is like, we got to move these guys out of here. They basically
Oh,
just want
okay.
to keep the family alive long enough to figure out what the fuck to do with them, because at this time they still want Nicky to go to trial for what he's done to the country.
Yeah.
They're still trying to figure it out. But also at this time, the Reds and the Whites are still fighting each other. There's two different government systems that are trying to get put into place right now. And they're constantly going back and forth on what's going on and who's going to be in power of who. So they're actually still fighting over that right now. So all we know is that Nikki is not in power, but there's actually no set government in place right now. There's a provincial government, but it's not actually doing much because the Reds and the Whites are still fighting over who's going to be what.
Mhm.
That's when we have the issue with like the Bolsheviks and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
this situation.
Okay, cool.
So, news finally gets to Tobolsk that the family has abdicated. And so they're like, we got to fucking dip. So, March, they're finally starting to give out ration cards. And the imperial family is given ration cards. And they're doing the bare minimum what they can. They have a garden, but it's not doing much, if anything at all, for them. The family is going to be moved now. This is April. So,
Mhm.
April, May, June, July. We've got 4 months. April, May, June, July. We've got 4 months.
Oh dear.
So April, the family is said that they're going to the family is told that they're going to be moved. Now at this point, Alexei is way too sick to move. He's literally turning yellow. He is so sick.
Oh, poor
He is
baby.
having in the midst of a hemophilia flare up. On top of the fact that he is still sick, and they thought he was gonna die. Like he's been close to death a lot, but he's gonna die.
Yeah.
All of the other girls were also not feeling great. Now, Nikki was told that he could go on his own to wherever they're going, but they wouldn't tell him where specifically they were being taken to, and Nikki refused to go alone. So Alex said she would go with him. And the problem is that Alex didn't want to go without one of the girls. They didn't want to leave without someone. So they decided that Olga was still way too weak to go, and Tatiana was the only one who could keep them together because Tatiana was the one who had taken basically control and was running the family at this point because she had the strength to do it. Now she was also very upset and very depressed, but she was able to compartmentalize it a little bit better
Mhm.
because she was basically the head of the house right now. And they wanted to leave Anastasia with the girls and Alexei because Alexei can't move. Tatiana has to run everything, and Olga is too upset to go anywhere, and she's still very sick and she's very, very weak. So they needed someone to cheer them up. So they wanted to leave Anastasia because Anastasia is that high-spirited, fun person. And even though she's still very upset and she has bouts of crying and depression, she still manages to make the family laugh. So they
Mhm.
wanted to leave her there. So they ended up taking Maria with her. Maria joins them and they leave on the 26th of April to go to Siberia. I gotta figure out the name of this fucking place. Hang on.
Okay.
The House of Special Purpose. The Ipatiev House, I think is how it's called. It's the House of Special Purpose. That's what it's called, which is stupid. That's literally what they named it.
Okay, that's ridiculous, I guess.
It's basically like they knew they were going to kill them in this house at this point.
Oh, so they know Endgame. Okay, okay.
At this point, they have a good idea of what's going to happen. Well, at this point, I think they're going back and forth on the idea, so they're moving to somewhere that if they do decide to execute them, they can execute them there.
Mm-hmm.
So the 26th, they leave. Now, they would end up being apart for a while, bare minimum to April, some point in April. Now, the girls would stay there, and I think it was a few weeks that they were there. The rest of the families headed off to Siberia, to the Ipatiev house. Once the kids got better, once Anastasia, Olga, Tatiana, and Alexei got better, they were put on a ship to head out of, to Tobolsk. What the fuck? Okay.
Are your notes a little funky?
Yeah, I think I put this in the wrong spot. Okay. I guess I put this in the wrong spot because I wrote to Tobolsk, but they were supposed to be leaving Tobolsk. So I'm just going to insert this here, and I'm really sorry that this is out of order. I think I might have put this in the wrong year. So, did I put this in the wrong year? I might have put this in the wrong year. Whatever. Apparently, at some point while they were on the ship to Tobolsk, one of the guards had slipped off a ladder and hurt himself. I must have put this in the wrong year. I think Tatiana tried to help him, and he didn't let her, but she kept, like, doting on him the entire time.
Tatiana, now is not the time. Tatiana, now is not the time.
Literally.
Tatiana, this man is literally going to probably kill you and your entire family. Now is not the time.
Yeah. So, at this point, Olga was reportedly deeply depressed and looked like she was thin, she was pale. She was very sickly.
Mm-hmm.
She could walk she could walk a little bit in the garden, but she spent most of her time with her little brother. There's a lot of photos of them together as well.
Mm-hmm.
One of the guards recalled that a few times that she did walk outside, she stood there gazing sadly into the distance, making it easy to read her emotions. She also got very angry at Maria for being too nice to the guards that were watching them. I think she was starting to snap again. Because you have to remember, Olga's got that really, really harsh personality about her too. It's hidden, but it's there.
Yeah, so at this point, she's like kind of building up to
Yeah.
like eruption. Like she's not thrilled about any of this.
I don't think she ever gets there, unfortunately.
Oh, damn.
So eventually the kids meet up with the family in the Ipatiev house. Now here it is super, super strict. They are not allowed to go outside. They have, not at least very often, they have a little bit of a garden, but not much. It's really not yielding much. I mean, they're in the middle of Siberia. At some point during this time, I couldn't remember when or where, they started to limit Alex and Nicholas's interactions to only during meals when they could be guarded. Other than that, they did not see each other at all. They were kept pretty much very separate. I don't even think the girls were allowed to see their dad.
That's heartbreaking.
At this point in time, at this point in time, they really were just like, Nicholas was getting a lot of abuse from the guards, which makes sense. He was the ex-Tsar.
Yeah, I mean, that tracks, but at the same time.
Yeah. And during this whole time, people were flooding the different houses they were staying in to gawk at them and take photos of them and just see what it looked like for the imperial family to be normal people. Because most people had never seen the imperial family before because they had been locked up the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So now that they're not the imperial family anymore, they don't have the right to privacy, according to them. So they're going out and gawking at these people, watching what they're doing.
I don't know.
July 14th, a private church service was held for the family. This ceremony, the person that held it would be one of the last people to see the family alive. They would be dead in 3 days.
Oh, shit.
During the service, the deacon sang rather than recited the At Rest with the Saints prayer. Now, this is important because in the Catholic Church, this is only typically done during funerals. The family is said to have fallen to their knees when this happened.
So this is their hint that's they're
The
not
funeral, yeah, basically. I don't know if the deacon knew, but when the guards actually came to get him for the thing, they thought that they were coming there to kill him and his family. He was actually surprised to find out that they wanted him to hold a service for them because I don't even think the family was allowed to pray or go to church at this point.
Mm-hmm. So they knew what was gonna happen. They just didn't know when.
I think at this point, most of the family knew. Bare minimum, Olga knew. The 15th, cleaning women were coming to help clean, and the family was not allowed to talk to any outsiders at all. But the sisters, even though they weren't allowed to talk, they still helped the women clean and make the beds. They were still monitored. They weren't allowed to talk. But even then, they still made a way to help. But at this point, Olga, I mean, she's really bad. She's really, really bad. Just past midnight on July 16th, Yakov Yurovsky, who had come in recently to take over watching the family and had dismissed the previous person that was taking head of the family, he knocked on the door, and Dr. Eugene Botkin, who was the family's physician, was the one to answer.
Yeah.
Yakov told him that the White Army were coming towards the town that they were staying in and that it would be dangerous to be in the upper floor when they arrived, given the gunfire. So, UK.
No,
So
because
they
I
would
know
be
it's coming, and
so
I'm not okay.
I know. So they would be moved downstairs to a semi-basement that they would be safer in. Botkin agreed and went to go get the family. It took them about 45 minutes to get dressed.
They're all still sick and like really weak, and
Mm-hmm. So the girls just got dressed in normal clothes. At this point, I think they were actually told that they would be put on a ferry heading to England after this. They were actually going to be taken out. That's what they were told. That's what they were expecting, is that at some point soon they were going to be taken to England. Nicholas carried Alexei downstairs. At this point in time, he was not able to access or move many of his joints, so he had to be carried. And he was 13 years old at this time, but he weighed only about 80 pounds.
poor baby.
Anastasia had brought her dog Jemmy with him, and I believe Alexei had also brought one of his dogs with him as well. The family was taken downstairs. The girls got ready separately and went down with their mother. They also had Nicholas's valet driver Troop, Demidova, Alexei's maid, and Karitanov, who was the cook. So they have the maid, the valet, the cook, and then Dr. Botkin with them as well. Yakov reportedly said that there were no tears, no questions. They suspected absolutely nothing.
Oh no.
They went down the stairs and they entered a 20-foot by 16-foot semi basement. The windows were barred and padded to prevent noise from getting through, and the doors, once they entered in, were locked. Supposedly, upon entering the room, Alex said, "What? No chairs? May we not sit?" One of the men went to go get a chair. He said to another man, "The heir needs a chair. Evidently, he wants to die in a chair."
What the fuck?
They were given 2 chairs to sit in, one for Alexei and one for Alex. And the girls held pillows and they put them behind Alex and Alexei to cushion their backs on the chairs. Now, Yakov was actually an amateur photographer, so he told the family to line up for a photo because the people in Moscow were worried that the imperial family had escaped, and they wanted proof that the family was still there.
Okay.
So Nicholas stood next to Alexei in the middle of the group, and Alexandra sat near the wall, I believe to the right or the left, I don't remember. The daughters arranged themselves in a row behind them, and the rest of the entourage stood behind Nicholas and Alexei. So I believe it was probably Alex on the right and Nicholas on the left.
Okay.
Once they were lined up, Yakov called in a few of his men. Now, supposedly 2 officers did refuse to partake in this, and I have all of their names listed as well. I have receipts. Once everyone was lined up properly, Yakov pulled out a piece of paper and said, "In view of the fact that your relatives are continuing their attack on Soviet Russia, the Ural Executive Committee has decided to execute you." Nicholas quickly turned to look at his family and then back at Yakov and said, "What? What?" Yakov repeated himself and then pulled out a gun and shot Nicholas point blank 3 times in the chest and once in the head. Nicholas was killed instantly. Once Nicholas was shot, all of the men opened fire. Each man was told who to aim for and that they were to aim for the heart to make it less messy. Supposedly, right when the firing had just started, Olga and Alex tried to cross themselves, but they did not have time to do so before they were shot. Alex was shot and killed instantly with a bullet to the head. Dr. Botkin, Troop, the valet person, I believe, and the chef were also killed immediately. Later on, it was noted that there were so many bullets that the drywall had actually completely fallen away from the wall in certain places. And there's photos of it as well that you can see there are large chunks about 2 feet long, completely missing from the wall. The first round of bullets killed Nikki, Alex, and wounded Maria. Tatiana had tried to run for the double doors, but they were locked and she was shot in the leg. At this point, the shooting was so bad that the men were completely drunk. They were shooting so much that there was too much smoke in the room, and the gas from the guns and the dust was blocking their vision, and they also couldn't hear anything because they were shooting so close to each other that they were deafening each other with the bullets.
Yeah.
At this point in time, one of the people ran outside to see if you could hear anything that was going on in the basement from the outside, and you could, in fact, very clearly hear. So he ran back in and told them to stop. He said that if they were going to continue, they needed to kill the family with the bayonets and the butt of their guns, basically blunt force trauma to the head. During the time when they stopped, people said that they could hear whimpering and moaning coming from the room. They had opened the doors to let out the smoke as well. Alexei was still alive, and when he was the first person to be killed after the first round of shootings. He was still sitting in his chair, and one of the men unloaded an entire magazine into his chest, and nothing happened. It was found out later that his clothes were sewn in with jewels, as most of the daughters were in their corsets. And they were sewn so tightly with jewels and diamonds that it actually ended up making kind of a bulletproof vest. So a lot of their bullets completely bounced off the girls and Alexei. Another man came up and shot and stabbed Alexei in the chest, and when it didn't work, he ended up on the floor. Another one of the men came up. So Alexei at this point was laying on the floor and he was trying to shield himself. Remember, his father was killed right next to him, so he was actually trying to reach for Nikki. Alexei was kicked in the head, and then Yakov came over and shot him twice behind the ear, killing him instantly. At this point, Tatiana at some point had tried to get up, I believe, and run maybe. She was killed with a shot to the back of her head. Yurovsky and another man named Ermakov approached Maria and Anastasia, who at this point had huddled together in the corner trying to shield themselves with pillows that they had brought with them that were also full of jewels. They were clinging to each other and they were screaming for Alexei. Ermakov stabbed both of the women with his bayonet, but he found it difficult to penetrate their corsets due to the jewels that were shown in. The sisters tried to stand, and this, I believe, is when Tatiana was killed. They were gunned down. At this point, Olga was also shot in her jaw, and she died instantly. At this point in time, they believed that the entire family was dead, so they went upstairs and they grabbed sheets from the girls' beds to wrap the family up in and carry them out. Because of how bad everything had been, there was blood absolutely everywhere. The girls were wrapped up in sheets, and in the process of trying to transport their bodies to a truck that had been pulled outside, Anastasia sat up, still alive,
Oh my god.
screamed, and covered her face with her arms. She was stabbed to death with a bayonet, and she was the last to die.
Oh god.
Also, their dog was bludgeoned to death with a bayonet.
Of fucking course. Of fucking course.
At this point, the entire Perio family is dead. All of the children watched Nicholas and Alex die instantly. They were spared. Anastasia watched her entire family die and then was brutally stabbed to death. The maid that was with them had survived the initial gunning and was actually trying to defend herself with a pillow full of jewels and run. They let her run out of the room and then gunned her down in the next room.
That's sick.
I do want to point out how absolutely bizarre it is, the parallels to Gregory's assassination and the assassination of the imperial family. Both parties failed their initial attempts at assassinations, one with the supposed cyanide, the other with the original round of bullets. Both were brought to a basement for the execution, and unfortunately, in both situations, the information about their deaths was not immediately made public.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Also, both people were killed not long after midnight.
I'm sorry. I
Took about 20 minutes to kill the family and load them into the truck. The family needed to be disposed of before dawn because the party that was actually marching in was there to try to save the imperial family. They planned to put the family in a place called the Four Brothers, and it was named this because it was a clearing that was surrounded by 4 massive pine trees that kind of overlooked the site. The clearing was full of small ponds and shallow pits where coal and other materials had been mined previously. However, even though they had initially plotted this area out, because it was dark outside, they had issues finding the area. Once they were in the forest, however, heading down the road, they ran into a group of 25 men in wagons and horseback who were heading up the road, who had been tipped off by Ermakov that the imperial family would be with them. He promised his friends, the 4 duchesses, as well as being able to kill the Tsar themselves. They were very
That's
upset when they didn't get that opportunity, and Yurovsky ordered the men to load the bodies into their carts because the truck wasn't able to carry all the bodies at this point.
that's fucking disgusting.
As they did, the men began to steal clothing from the bodies and anything that they had in their pockets, and Yurovsky quickly stopped them and said that if they continued to do that, they would be killed too, right on site. They ended up splitting the bodies between the carts and the truck that they had originally brought in, and it took them until dawn to find the turnoff for the 4 brothers. However, the truck couldn't make it up the path and actually ended up breaking down, so they put more bodies in the carts to make it through. There's one main pit in this area called Gannon's Pit, and it's about 9 feet deep. This is the main pit that's there, but I don't know if this was the pit that was used. There's also a shallow mine shaft nearby. Yurovsky ordered the family be laid in the grass and stripped completely naked while 2 fires were made. While stripping one of the girls, the men noticed jewelry sewn into their clothing, making almost a bulletproof vest. The men tried to steal the diamonds, and Yakov immediately dismissed them except for a few men that he could monitor to help dispose of the family's bodies. Alex had initially told the girls to sew the jewelry into their clothing so that if they did make it out of this alive, if they did get exiled, they would still have money to be able to take care of themselves. They weren't sure if they had money anywhere else.
This was done just in case they were able to make it to England.
Yeah. And it ended up just prologuing their execution. Had they not done this, the girls would probably have died instantly. Also, the pillows that all the girls had were full of jewels as well.
But they all thought that they were just going to be there until transport could arrive to take them somewhere
They
else.
had been told since they abdicated that the plan was for them to be held in Russia until the family was not sick anymore, and then they would be sent to England. That was the plan the entire time. When the provincial government failed, I think the Bolsheviks took over, and that's when the execution was decided. The bodies of the families were horribly disfigured, and while they were laying there, the faces of the imperial families were completely destroyed with the butts of the guns, either out of pure rage or for the purpose of making it hard to identify them. Once their clothes were burned and the jewels were taken, a few of the men began to touch the bodies of the Grand Duchesses and Alex. One says, "I felt the Empress myself and she was warm." I don't know what era he means by that. Another said, "Now I can die in peace because I have squeezed the Empresses," and then the next word of the sentence was crossed out. Their bodies were thrown into a small mine shaft near the main pit, and then Yakov threw several grenades in to try and collapse the pit on top of them. By 10 in the morning, they were done and they left.
I'm going to be sick. I'm actually going to be sick.
8 days later, the Whites rushed the house to try and look for the family. They were there to save them. The house was mostly empty. The people who had executed the family, either them or people that they were working with, had come in and taken all of their items and destroyed and burned them. I mean, it was completely empty. They took a look around the area, but they couldn't find anything, any signs of where they were. 6 months later, in January of 1919, the supreme leader of the white government of Siberia assigned Nicholas Sokolov to find the imperial family. He began searching in the 4 brothers right away because I think he had heard rumors that that's where they had been buried, and he ordered the water to be pumped from the main pit and a small mine shaft nearby. Nothing was found in the main pit, but the smaller mine shaft did contain a couple of things. Nicholas's belt a military cap worn by Nicholas, and a matching one that his son had. Alexi's emerald cross gifted to her by Maria, a pearl earring, an ulm cross, which is I think a type of wood, her spectacle case, and a dismembered finger that looked very similar to how Alexandra preferred to have her nails done. 3 icons of religious figures that belonged to the girls, 6 sets of women corsets, shoe buckles also belonging to the girls, Alexi's military belt buckle, and a series of odds and ends like nails, copper coins, tinfoil, and a small locket that he liked to keep in his pockets that were identified by Pierre Gilliard. Dr. Botkin's glasses, and the upper plate of his false teeth. He had false dentures. A charred bone, partially destroyed by acid, and the decomposed body of Jemmy, Anastasia's dog. He ended up discovering that the day after the killings, on July 18th, Yakov had returned with 2 barrels of gasoline and 1 barrel of sulfuric acid. He used an axe to dismember the bodies of the imperial family and then tried to burn them and then covered them with acid. Nicholas Sokolov placed the physical remains that he found in a small box, and he stayed in the area until that summer when he was forced to flee to Europe. The box vanished along with him. He published his findings, but people argued that it was impossible to burn the bones of 11 people to ash in a bonfire. Because at
Which
this point,
is true,
but they didn't have the bodies, so he assumed that they had all been completely destroyed.
yeah.
So we jump forward to 1979.
Hell of a jump. Okay.
1979, Alexander Avdonin. He was born in the town where the imperial family was killed. It's got a different name now. I don't know what it is, but I do. I just can't pronounce it. He was joined by Gelly, a amateur filmmaker who had actually been given information by one of the sons of the killers of the imperial family that led them to the exact location, the 4 brothers, where the bodies have been buried. Spring of 1979, the bodies were discovered. They kept the skulls for a little bit. They had dug them up, kept them, and then eventually put them back with religious icons and prayers, hoping that the family would stay safe until the time was right. Because at this point, the USSR was still in power and the Romanov bodies were still a threat.
Yeah.
Because the USSR is what took over after the Romanovs.
I mean, I understand. Doesn't mean I like it.
A little over a decade later, in 1991, the bodies were officially dug up once the USSR fell and a royal committee was put in to find them. Now, unfortunately, when they discovered the bodies, one of the girls and Alexi's body was completely missing. July of 2007, another pit was identified not far from the original pit where the bodies were found, and 2 more bodies were discovered there.
2007?
July 2007. 2008, in April, almost a year later, they were able to do DNA testing to prove that it was Alexei and one of the daughters that had been found. Now, they had verified Alex, Nicholas, Olga, and Tatiana, but they were unable to figure out which one of the daughters, Maria or Anastasia, was found with the parents and which one was found with Alexei. It's typically believed that Anastasia and Alexei were found together. July 17th, 1998, on the 80th anniversary of their deaths, the family was laid to rest in St. Peter and Paul Cathedral in St. Petersburg. August 14th of 2000, they were made passion bearers since they technically didn't die the death that qualified them as saints, but they are considered like saints. On the site where they were killed, where the house of special importance, whatever I called it, on the location of that house, the church on blood in honor of all saints resplendent in the Russian land was built. A cross sits exactly where they were killed. You okay?
No, I'm not.
There still is no verification of which daughter was found with Alexei, and which daughter was found with the rest of the family. Their bodies were destroyed because they were scared that when the whites finally marched in, they would use the bodies as martyrs for the counter-revolution to put a czar back in power. I don't have any way to end this on a good note, but I'm glad that Alexei didn't have to rest alone. And in a very weird way, and you can take this as spiritual bullshit as you want, but I really feel like, in a terrible way, the 4 brothers watched over them until the time was right for them to be found. Now, you already know the story of the children of the people who were killed there, and you know the story of Anna Anderson, so you know how tragic it is to know that someone walked around pretending to be the family, especially knowing Anastasia's fate. Anastasia did not survive. Anastasia did not go on to live a life. None of the girls did. And up until they were taken to Tobolsk, there was actually talk of still having a marriage for Olga, who did not get to live past her 22nd birthday. All of the girls' birthdays passed while they were in captivity. They were unable to celebrate them. Alexei was able to celebrate his a little bit, and some of the girls were given treats on their birthday, but all the other birthdays were completely ignored. The only other thing that I can say about this is during my notes, I used midliner highlighters, and I associated a color with each of the family, and I think represents them very much. Nicholas, I used beige, but it's a brown beige. Alexandra, I used olive. Olga was soda blue, which is a baby blue. Tatiana, I used lilac. Maria was honey orange. Anastasia was baby pink. And Alexei was cool gray, though I did switch his halfway through from yellow. And that is the story of the Last Romanovs. It, it was really hard researching this because I knew how it ended, and I had gotten so attached to the girls that I was desperate to hear that they got to be happy. And it really sucks given with the situation that they were in, because they were genuinely good people and they didn't deserve what happened to them.
No,
And
they didn't.
unfortunate, every single turn, even up until literally their death, it seemed like they were constantly suffering because of other people. If anyone in that room should have had a quick and painless death, it should have been the children, and it wasn't. In fact, it was the opposite. Alexei died desperately trying to hold on to his father. Maria and Anastasia died together, the little pair. Olga, I think, had given up at that point. She didn't have the energy to fight. And Tatiana died, not seeing what was coming. Nicholas and Alex were spared watching their family die in front of them. And Anastasia had to watch it all. The one person that tried to cheer them up all the time, the family's cheerleader, the most rambunctious girl in the world. And these imposters had the nerve to pretend to be her and live the life that she should have lived. I think we talk about the Romanovs a lot, but we don't actually process the fact that it was a family. We don't process the fact that
These were children.
and they suffered at the hands of what their parents decide to do. I think given the information of what would have happened, Nicholas would have never done what he did. I don't know that I can say the same for Alex.
I don't think Alex cared at that point. I hate to say it, I hate to speak ill of the dead, but I don't think she cared.
Some point of me is hoping that, the girls were still sick. Part of me is hoping that they were so gone that they didn't process it.
Part of me wonders is the second that the preacher sang instead of spoke, like speak that passage. Part of me wonders if they knew that they were on borrowed time, if they knew that it was coming, but they didn't know when.
I think the moment that Rasputin died, they knew they were going to die.
I can't
There
imagine
is
that.
there's a section of the Romanov sisters book that's titled "They Knew It Was the End When I Wasn't With Them," and it's actually, I think, one of their tutors or someone that looked over them that wasn't with them at the end. Every single place that the daughters went, everyone there fell in love with them. It was almost impossible. It was probably impossible to not like the imperial children, except for Carol. They were bright and beautiful children. They were absolutely amazing. And unfortunately, because of their parents, they never got to lead Russia. But I fully believe that they would have been incredible leaders. Even when they were in the midst of the worst part of their lives and the very end of their lives, they kept thinking about their soldiers back in St. Petersburg and taking care of the wounded soldiers that were coming in for a war that they didn't want to happen. And I wish there was mercy granted to them. Unfortunately, there's no way that they could have survived that at all, given the fact that they were the imperial children. I feel worst for the youngest because most of their life was nothing.
We know nothing, and you've told us so much. And I know it's just a fraction of what they lived, and
But
can't.
unfortunately, to try to keep themselves safe, they had to burn all of their diaries, their journals, everything, in order to try to save their own lives.
I'm sorry, I just remembered that they were probably reading Alex's porn to her husband. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I
But in
am
order to keep
grasping.
themselves safe, they destroyed any record of who they were. What little we have is from the accounts of others who are willing to say probably anything, good or bad. And it was so hard to find anything bad about these girls. They were curious and they were willing to learn from their mistakes. They loved their country and their people. And I know that this was the execution of the Tsar and the Tsaritsa, but this was also the execution of 5 kids who did nothing. And at the end of it, when the girls were finally reunited with each other, they didn't care that they didn't have anything. They didn't even have beds to sleep on. They didn't care. They were just happy to be together. Those sisters loved each other so much. And Alexei was right in the middle of it all. That was their little brother. They adored him so much. And near the end of his life, when he was just growing up, he was so happy. It's really hard. And I know there's so much that I didn't get to talk about, and there's so much that I didn't get to mention. And I know it's probably dumb to get so emotional, but I look at photos of these girls and it's hard. And it makes me sad that they didn't get to be here. So, we talk so casually about the Romanovs. Everyone knows the Romanov family. But I don't think people understand the depths of what happened. And it wasn't just the killing of a leader. And I really think that the true victims of this were the children. They had just barely turned 18 or had just barely turned 21, 22. It's hard. It's terrible. And I don't think I'll ever be able to go another day of the rest of my life without thinking of them. The family are now considered saints, and they do have their own saint days that they are recognized on. I don't know them, but
We can probably find them and post them on the Instagram.
yes,
Then
I will post them on the Instagram if anyone would like to pay respects to the deceased. I think those would be the best days to do it, given what we know about the family. Can't be that hard, but
yeah, misinformation in all forms is dangerous. We see it constantly.
when the family was executed, the news had actually gotten out that only Nicholas was killed because they didn't want to admit that they killed everyone else. It wasn't until much, much later that Yakov actually admitted that all of the family had been killed. They wanted to put the family back in power. Had the family not been executed, they probably would have been put back in power.
It would have been a hell of a learning curve. And like a hell of a lesson. And be like, okay, here's what not to do. But
the thing is, Nicholas abdicated because he thought that was best for the people. He just wanted to be a father. He just wanted to have a farm. He just wanted to play with his kids. He just wanted to be a dad. And he was a great dad. He loved all of his kids so much. They were so close to him. And it is devastating to know that he only got to live the life that he wanted for a year and a half. I truly believe that this family was doomed from the start. I think the moment that they got married, their entire life was sealed. I also can't imagine a different way that this could have gone. It's a tragedy. It truly is. And it's one that I think is very important. And it's one that I think still has a huge impact on the world and the way that people view families in power.
we still see it. Like, there are still people out there who, even with the finding of the secondary bodies and like the identification of the bodies,
They
still
still think
that what,
Anastasia made it out alive.
and that is,
Literally the opposite of the truth.
I mean, it's not just that, but it takes away from how like, what actually happened. It takes so much away from everything. I bring up a lot about how my case in particular kind of restarted the resurgence of satanic panic, especially in Texas, because of like the misinformation with everything that went on. I mean, the name Narcosatanicos is inherently wrong. I went over it in the very first episode. It is inherently wrong, but we don't have another name for them. That's just what they were called. That's what they're known as.
Yeah.
But by focusing on Mark Kilroy and Mark Kilroy alone, like I see so many people do, it takes away from the other victims. By implying that Anastasia still lived, that was still alive, and survived that, takes away from her.
Mhm.
It's inherently disrespectful to her and to her family and to everything that they went through.
Mhm.
And it makes me sick now. I'm not
You'll
gonna
never
lie.
watch the movie the same way again.
Absolutely not. And it's a nice story. It's a nice fantasy of what
Also,
could have
the
been.
whole like celebrating the 300th year of the whatever that did happen, it did not happen at the same time. By the way,
Yeah,
like I could go over the inconsistencies of the movie to the true story so much. I'm not going to, but I could. Um
I think the musical's a lot more like accurate, but
I
it
mean,
can't
bare
be that
minimum the
accurate.
clothing is. But yeah, it's rough, and also the families of the people that died, and I didn't even mention anyone. There was more people that were loyal to the family that had been killed days before that were taken away, and the family was told that they would return, and they were actually executed. I think in total I've seen different things, but either 11 or 14 people were killed that were connected to the imperial family. And that's not including anyone else who was associated with the family who was arrested and executed after the fact. They literally cleared out anyone that had any loyalties to the Russian family. And then the USSR took over, and I'll talk about their dastardly deeds later this year in a different story I'm doing in Russia.
Fuck the USSR,
Actually, I
man.
have 2 more stories in Russia for this year.
The minimum.
The bare minimum.
I'm
It's hard. I mean, I've had dreams about this. I've had nightmares about this. I can't get over these girls.
I
Like when I started this, I couldn't tell you which daughter was which. And now I can tell you everything about them. My coworker actually joked about it. They turned to me and was like, "What what was one of the girls' favorite foods?" And I was like, "Oh, well, Maria used to like to eat cookies and she would sit on the Stundert." And my coworker was like, "You're in too deep." I'm like, "I don't know what to tell you." And he was like, "Do you think Anastasia would like Fortnite?" I'm like,
do you like that's a genuine
yes, but I don't know if that's the most respectful thing to ask me right now. Like, it's like that whole like, oh my god, do you think that if this person had been murdered, they'd like our podcast? It's the
Oh my
same
god.
fucking energy, and I'm like,
It's like when Justin Bieber went to the Anne Frank house and was like, "Oh yeah, if she were alive right now, she'd be a believer."
I don't, I don't know. I don't like Fortnite. I don't think she would like Fortnite,
I
but I'm
think
like,
she
I
would
don't.
like the chaos and like the ability just to like rag on bitches, but
But it's just so, and I know I keep focusing on Anastasia. It really like, I know too much about Olga. I got way too invested in Tatiana. I am so invested in Tatiana. I feel so bad for Maria for everything she had to go through. But Anastasia was the happiest girl. She was the cheerleader of the family, and she suffered the most. Of all the sisters, why her? It reminds me of when you did uh Hinterkaifeck, and one of the girls was in so much pain that she started ripping out her own hair. That was the first thing I thought of when it said that
Zeely.
yeah.
Little Zeely.
When it
She
said
was
that Anastasia had sat up and started screaming, that's the first thing I thought of. And
she was so young. She was in school still, like she was very young when she died. I think she was 7 actually. I think she was 7 years old. But I just you were
Anastasia was 17 when she died.
I don't think Zeely had been born yet whenever this happened cuz they died around like Actually, I think she might have just been born.
They died 1918.
I don't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to look back at my notes, but
Alexei was 13 when he died. He was a baby. Olga was 22 when she died.
I mean, we're not that much older than Olga
No.
when she died. And I like to say that we're still pretty, like, I'm not gonna
She
call us children, but
22, she was so young. And like I understand by their standards she wasn't, but like
I feel I'm not doing okay.
I know, I'm sorry.
No, it's not just that, because, like, I'm looking, like, this is a time where we take to decompress and look over everything, and we look back at everything. And Adolfo and Martine never faced justice for their crimes. The Casada family murders, that, like, massacre that I told you about, nobody was ever charged in relation to that.
Mhm.
They all just kind of accepted that the cult did it and closed it, but nobody was actually ever charged for that.
Yeah.
I mean, there are still 2 cult members who have yet to be caught, and they've been on the run since 1989.
Mhm.
If they're still alive, that's insane. And then you have, like, so many victims. In my case, we don't even know their names because nobody bothered to ask and nobody could identify them. And then you have so many people in my case where they just don't. I don't know. Given how hard this was for the both of us, we're planning on taking a break from the heavier stuff for the next few weeks,
Yeah.
focusing on some lighter things, focusing on some more, not fun things, I guess, but like lighter, just to get some breathing room in, because you guys had to sit through this, and this series is almost 20 hours, if not more, of just information from both sides. I apologize.
Mhm.
Thank you guys so much for sticking it out.
I actually don't apologize.
I know you don't. I do.
I'm sorry. I don't I think one of the family members isn't buried with the rest of the others. I'm checking it right now. I could have sworn one of the sisters was not buried with the rest. I think she was laid to rest way later. God, seeing baby photos of Anastasia's hard. No, I think they're all buried together right now. I think there was a period of time where they weren't all buried together, but I don't know.
I mean, I imagine between, like, all the DNA testing and everything, they had to, like,
Oh, they have 2 tiny coffins. Oh, it's sad. The rest of the family, like the whole family is buried there. Like everyone is buried there. Yeah, the whole family is buried there, it looks like.
we should probably wrap this up,
We should probably
given
wrap
that
this
it's
up.
almost 3:30 in the morning.
I'm so sorry. Thank you for anyone who managed to stick it out this long. Hopefully the episode didn't sound terrible and there wasn't a horrible echo the entire time. But yeah, next episode is going to be a lot lighter. Calling out some racists, which I love doing.
It's like your favorite thing. You did it on our very first episode, and
I have screenshots. I have screenshots of
oh,
TikTok comments. Yeah. Next episode, I will be in Africa, which is exciting. Looking into something that I've actually been really curious about for about a year now. And I have no idea what you're doing
next month, not next month. Wow,
next week.
next week I will be in the middle of buttfuck nowhere, Montana.
Oh my God. I love that for us. We're both going to be in the middle of nowhere. Crazy.
Crazy how that works.
Thank you for crying with us and for dealing with this. Unfortunately, my bigger stories are probably not gonna be any better. Just a heads up, the other 2 stories that I have planned for Russia this year, I'm not gonna tell you when they're gonna come up. I will be covering at some point Chernobyl in the this year or next year, and at some point this year I will be covering Dyatlov Pass. And that should be my only other 2 stories in Russia, and once that's done, I literally don't know what else I could do in Russia. And technically Chernobyl isn't Ukraine before my Ukrainian friend comes at me, okay?
I know my next 3 cases, so next week, the week after, and the week after that, those are going to be fairly lighthearted cases.
Mine are not. I actually don't know what I'm doing
Um
after next week.
but after that, I'll be kind of doing a return to form in terms of the heavier cases. I'm gonna try to space it out where I'll do like a series of like heavy cases and like an intersplattering of like lighter cases just to like lighten things up. Just because if I'm doing dark shit all the time, I think Mythos might actually break up with me.
I'll off myself first,
Oh God, please
but
don't.
I'll think about it.
Don't. That being said, I also want to apologize in advance if this episode does not come out on Friday.
It's currently
Thur-
Thursday.
It's currently 3 in the morning on Thursday, so if I don't edit all of this down in
It's my
2
fault.
days,
It's been a rough week, guys, and we've been dealing with a lot. I'm still trying to get over a lot of family stuff, and also like work's been insane.
and I'm also chronically ill, and my chronic fatigue has been kicking my ass lately. Like, we're going through it, guys.
We're gonna get on a consistent schedule soon, but unfortunately, just the amount of research that we've had to do on this month has been intense. But we're going back to shorter form stuff, so we'll be back on schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for bearing with us. This month in particular has been crazy. But it'll be okay.
I personally think it's because of the fucking eclipse.
Probably.
Fuck that.
I think
shit.
it's just March. I think it's just March.
I
Nothing good happens in March.
hey,
Except for Caesar dying.
That's fair. That's fair.
And I guess your birthday.
Yeah.
And our anniversary.
And our anniversary. So that actually brings us to the end of the March series.
Thank you if you were here, and it's okay if you weren't. But if you weren't here, you don't hear this, so meh.
Well, you might be here listening to this in the future, whoever you are.
Yeah, you decided to come back here. What are you doing here? Huh?
What's going on?
Hey, you okay? Why are you back here?
Did you need to cry? It's okay if you need to cry. Make sure you drink some
Yeah.
water afterwards.
Are you on a road trip? Is that why you're listening to this?
Where are you going?
Yeah, where are you going? Where'd you come from? Cotton Eye Joe. I'm only halfway through my monster.
Oof. Thank you. I don't know what I'm gonna do next year.
We are never doing this again.
I do have other multi-parters planned, but those are gonna take like a while's worth of research, and I'm planning on getting that research and those notes knocked out way shway in advance, so that way if this thing ever happens, I'm not in this mindset for my entire birth month, because that sucked ass.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm not gonna say it was fun, but
We're in the end game now.
okay.
I made the lights red again.
The lights are red again.
All right, well, I think we're done. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you to the Romanovs for letting me tell their story.
Whoever keeps putting out misinformation about this goddamn cult and these goddamn people,
We're coming for you.
I'm coming for
We're
your
coming
fucking
for
toes.
you. I've got Psychos on the rage train. We're coming for you. Choo choo.
No, I'm so pissed off because it's so disrespectful. Anyway, that being said, stay safe out there, guys.
Have a good night. Don't believe everything that you read on Tumblr.
Don't believe everything you see on TikTok either, just because you laugh at your parents for believing Fox News does not make you immune to other types of propaganda. Please.
Yeah.
Think critically.
Leave an extra cookie out for Maria during Christmas time.
Stop it, I'm gonna cry again.
This has been my life for 3 months now.
Okay, cool. Alrighty, good night, guys. Or good morning, good afternoon, whenever you're listening to this, but
Drive safe. Sleep safe. If you're at work, don't be... Quit your job. Don't quit your job. Quit your job. Don't quit your job.
Quit your job if you don't like your job.
Fuck the patriarchy.
Fucking men. Anyway.
Fuck Rasputin. Good night.
Fuck the fucking government.
Good night.
I'm tired.
Good night.
Anyway. Good night. Stay safe.
Good night to everyone except Yakov Yurovsky and
Rasputin.
Grigory Rasputin.
And Adolfo de Jesus Constanzo.
We're coming for you.
You fucking son of a bitch.
We're coming for you.
As far as I know, that bitch ain't back yet. So.
Okay. We actually need to go. See you guys next week.
See you guys next week. Stay safe. Keep learning.
Yeet.
Good night.